Chapter 583. Xiang Kaiping didn't look at Li Qianxue at all. She only stared at Su Peijian. Who were you calling Mom just now? The third time, it was almost a question. Su Peijian stood there, unable to move an inch. The first thought that flashed through her mind was that it was over. Xiang Kaiping heard it. How much did she hear? Did she hear it all, or... Su Peijian felt a flash of panic in her heart. She thought of what she had just said. Mom. Who were you calling Mom? Xiang Kaiping didn't give her a chance to bluff. She took a step forward and stood at the door. This way, she and Li Qianxue stood in a subtle position. Xiang Kaiping faced inside, and Li Qianxue faced outside. The two of them stood next to each other. Li Qianxue frowned slightly at Xiang Caiping's words and at Xiang Caiping's aggressive tone. She turned and was about to walk out. She didn't know if it was a coincidence or not, but Xiang Kaiping happened to be in front of her. Li Qianxue turned her face to look at her. Xiang Kaiping also turned back to look at Li Qianxue at the same time. Their eyes met. This time, there was a subtle hostility in their eyes. Xiang Kaiping was jealous of Li Qianxue, not because Li Qianxue's family background was better than hers or because she was prettier than her, but because Li Qianxue had the daughter of her dreams. Li Qianxue didn't like Xiang Kaiping because she had occupied Su Qinghui's heart for more than 20 years. It was also because Su Qingsang still cared about her. The two of them just looked at each other, neither of them looking away. Su Peijian stood there. She never thought that one day such a situation would happen. Xiang Kaiping was 2 years older than Li Qianxue, but the gap between the two of them seemed to be more than 2 years. Xiang Kaiping had spent so many years missing her daughter and regretting sending her away. Half of her hair had turned white. Her clothes weren't old-fashioned, but the dark coat made her look 2 years older than her actual age. On the other hand, Li Qianxue had her own obsession, except for the matter of Su Qinghui. More than 20 years of pampered life made her look elegant and noble. He was dressed in a bright yellow, custom-made jacket. Her long hair was tied up, and the diamond earrings on her earlobes made her look even more noble. Xiang Kaiping had always been proud of herself. For so many years, no matter what she did, she had always relied on herself. Every step he took was the result of his own hard work. But now that she was facing Li Qianxue, the negative emotions that she had once ignored suddenly emerged at this moment. She forced herself not to look away, but when she saw the radiant Li Qianxue, she felt an uncontrollable inferiority complex. In order not to lose, she stared at Li Qianxue's face, but her eyes turned to Su Peijian. Peijian. Who were you calling Mom just now? Can you tell me about it? The hostility in her eyes was clear. However, Li Qianxue did not back down. She had already lost Su Qinghui's heart. She couldn't lose her dignity too. Looking at Li Qianxue, Xiang Kaiping felt a fire burning in her heart. The fire had almost burned her out of her senses. She had always known that Su Peijian was unwilling to acknowledge her as her mother. But she didn't expect to hear Su Peijian say something like that. In order to go back to the Su family, she actually begged Li Qianxue? Begged the woman she had hated for almost her entire life? She couldn't help but glare at Li Qianxue, her eyes filled with anger and resentment. Peijian. You want to go back to the Su family so badly, don't you? Since you don't regard me as your mother, since you still regard her as your mother, then go back. My temple here is too small for a big Buddha like you. Su Peijian looked at Xiang Kaiping, her lips moving. She had been unscrupulously enjoying the care and obedience that Xiang Kaiping gave her. In her mind, even if the whole world didn't want her anymore, Xiang Kaiping wouldn't abandon her. They were mother and daughter who were related by blood. But now, Xiang Kaiping actually said that she didn't want her anymore. Mom? She felt a little weak in her legs. What are you talking about? It doesn't matter what I say. What matters is what you are thinking. Since you are unwilling to acknowledge me and don't regard me as your mother, then go with her. Are you chasing me away? It's not that I'm chasing you away, but you don't want to stay. Xiang Kaiping finally looked away from Li Qianxue and turned to look at Su Peijian. Since you don't want to be my daughter, then go. Xiang Kaiping had been very depressed during this period of time. This kind of feeling was something she had never felt when she was with Su Qingsang. She always had to be careful when dealing with Su Peijian. She was always worried that she might say something wrong or do something wrong, which would cause Su Peijian to retaliate and make her unhappy. Although she used to care about Su Qingsang's thoughts. But Su Qingsang wouldn't let her have such feelings. She understood the gap in Su Peijian's heart and had been working hard to make up for it, trying to be a good mother. To be honest, the time she had spent with Su Peijian was about the same as the few months when Su Qingsang recognized her. She had done no less for Su Peijian than Su Qingsang. However, she could warm Su Qingsang's heart, but she couldn't make Su Peijian accept her. If it were any other situation, Xiang Kaiping would never say such a thing. But today, Li Qianxue was also by her side. Li Qianxue didn't want her daughter, but she treated her like a treasure. This understanding must have come to her, coupled with what had happened before. Xiang Kaiping suddenly didn't want to endure it anymore. In the past so many years, she had survived alone. Without Su Qingsang, without Su Peijian, she could also live on alone. She didn't want Su Peijian's hypocrisy. If she really couldn't forget Li Qianxue, then go back. She would pretend that she had never had this daughter. You can leave me. I agree that you can leave. You don't have to force yourself to call me mom in front of me. You don't have to pretend that you have accepted me in front of me. You don't have to. And she didn't need to be careful, worried that one day she would say or do something wrong and offend her. Su Peijian's lips moved. She didn't expect that the video she sent would make things like this. This wasn't the result she wanted. She didn't want this. The person who would be hated by the two mothers was Su Qingsang, wasn't it? The person who would be hated and despised by them was Su Qingsang, wasn't it? Clearly, Su Qingsang was the one who wanted to please both sides. How did she become the one who was being despised by both sides? Subconsciously, out of habit for more than 20 years, her gaze fell on Li Qianxue. She wanted Li Qianxue to give her some comfort and an answer. Li Qianxue didn't say anything. When she saw Su Peijian's expectant and almost pleading gaze, her heart trembled. Su Peijian's lips trembled slightly. She didn't say the word mom, but her eyes already contained that meaning. Li Qianxue understood that she was her escape route. Su Peijian treated her as a life-saving straw. She should go against Xiang Kaiping and keep Su Peijian. Let her go home with her. But she couldn't. She felt the corner of Xiang Caiping's eyes fall on her. She felt that she seemed to be waiting for her decision. Finally, Li Qianxue's hands, which were hanging by her side, slightly tightened and she looked at Su Peijian deeply. He calmly averted his gaze. Looking at Xiang Caiping's determined face, the corners of her lips slightly curled up. You don't have to say such things in front of me. Because she is no longer my daughter. Su Peijian's body trembled. Xiang Caiping's eyes widened and she looked at Li Qianxue sharply. However, as if she didn't feel their gazes, Su Peijian raised her head and walked away in her high heels. Her action was like a slap on Su Peijian's face. Mom? It was very low and very light, as if it was a whisper. She looked at Li Qianxue's disappearing figure behind the door in disbelief. She couldn't accept that Li Qianxue had really abandoned her like this. She was her daughter. When she turned around again, she found that Xiang Kaiping was also looking at her. Her gaze was complicated, and there was a faint trace of pity in it. Su Peijian's heart ached. She suddenly took a few steps forward and walked in front of Xiang Kaiping. Mom, what you said just now was a joke, wasn't it? Mom, you won't abandon me, will you? Xiang Kaiping looked at Su Peijian. She already didn't know what to do with this daughter of hers. Peijian. It's not that I don't want you. It's that you don't want me. I didn't. Mom. I didn't. I'm just. You just can't forget Li Qianxue. You just can't forget your rich life in the Su family. You just can't forget your mother-daughter relationship with Li Qianxue for more than 20 years. Su Peijian wanted to shake her head, but she couldn't defend herself. Xiang Kaiping sighed in her heart. Peijian, admit it. You don't see me as your mother at all. You don't want me as your mother either. If that's the case, why force yourself? Su Peijian was speechless. She had always been eloquent, but at this moment, she couldn't find the words to defend herself. Xiang Kaiping didn't need her to defend herself. She let out a long sigh and took a step back. Peijian. I don't blame you for not wanting to acknowledge me. I won't take back what I've given you. As for the future, you're on your own. She turned to leave, but Su Peijian stepped forward and grabbed her arm. Mom. Mom, don't go. Mom, listen to me. I was wrong. I was really wrong. I acknowledge you. I really do recognize you. I also really accept you. You can't abandon me. You can't abandon me. Xiang Caiping's body stiffened. She couldn't see Su Peijian's expression behind her. But she could feel the strength that Su Peijian used to hold her hand. She stood there, listening to Su Peijian's voice behind her. She raised her hand and calmly pried Su Peijian's fingers away. She turned to face Su Peijian. Her expression was the same as when Li Qianxue was about to leave, calm and indifferent. Peijian, I'm not your driftwood. You came to me without someone to rely on. When you had someone to rely on, you threw me aside. I'm not a passerby. I'm your mother. If you can't understand this, don't come back to me. After all, Su Peijian was her flesh and blood. Xiang Kaiping didn't want to see Su Peijian suffer too much. Peijian. If you're really willing to acknowledge me as your mother and want me to be your mother, the door of the house is always open, and you're welcome to come back. But you can also think clearly about whether you really want me as your mother. Xiang Kaiping finished speaking and left. The office suddenly became quiet. Su Peijian's body fell to the ground. She didn't get up. She just sat there, looking sluggish. Her eyes were a little empty as she stared at the empty corridor. After a long time, she suddenly stood up, walked back to the desk, and swept everything on the desk to the ground. Go. All go. Who wants you? Who wants you? She didn't want them. She didn't want a mother like these people. Don't you like Su Qingsang? Go and like her. Don't you want me? Then one day, I'll make you regret it. Yes. She must make them regret it. She must let them know that she, Su Peijian, was not a dog that they raised. If they wanted her, they wanted to throw her away. Su Qingsang, Su Qingsang. Everything was because of Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang changed out of her doctor's robe and left the office. She was shocked when she saw the familiar figure in the corridor. Dad? Didn't they agree on this? Yesterday, it was Li Qianxue. Today, it was Su Chenghui. She took a few steps forward and called out in a low voice. Su Chenghui's eyes were fixed on the photo on the wall. In the photo, Su Qingsang was wearing a doctor's robe, looking radiant and energetic. Her eyes were full of confidence, and her smile was full of beauty. He didn't seem to have seen a daughter like this. Hearing Su Qingsang call him, he turned his face and smiled at her. You're off work? Yes. Su Qingsang nodded and looked at Su Chenghui. It was already past the Dragon Boat Festival, and the weather in Rong City was getting hot. Su Chenghui was wearing a very formal three-piece dark suit. His hair was meticulously combed back. It looked like he had just met someone and came over. Dad, why are you here? You're off work, aren't you? Then let's have dinner together. Su Chenghui suggested. Su Qingsang thought of Li Qianxue at home and hesitated, but in the end, she nodded. Su Chingsang picked a good Cantonese restaurant nearby. Su Chinghui had lived with old Master Li for many years, so his taste was relatively light. After ordering, he called home and said that he wouldn't be back for dinner that night. Then he told Li Qianxue. She was afraid that Li Qianxue would overthink, so she only said that she had something to do at the hospital. Li Qianxue's voice didn't sound quite right. Su Chingsang wanted to ask, but Su Chinghui was sitting across from her. She had no choice but to hang up the phone, then picked up the teapot on the table and poured a cup of tea for Su Chinghui. "Dad, have some tea." Su Chinghui glanced at her and took the cup of tea. There was a trace of emotion in his eyes. "Were you talking to your mother just now?" "Yes." Su Chinghui came to Rong City and met Li Qianxue. It was impossible to lie to him that Li Qianxue wasn't at her place. "Your mother, how is she?" Looking at Li Qianxue's appearance yesterday, she was obviously very angry. It seemed that her anger hadn't subsided yet. Her personality had always been like that. She only believed what her eyes saw and what her heart believed. In the past, he was very proud of her personality. It was as if Li Qianxue had set her mind on him. No matter how he treated her, she would love him and never leave him. Now, he began to worry about her personality. Because this kind of Li Qianxue made Su Chinghui feel a kind of anxiety. He didn't know how to make her move. Su Chingsang didn't answer his question. "Dad, why did you come to Rong City? Can't I come to see you if I have nothing to do?" "Of course you can." It just made her a little surprised and a little flattered. "Dad, did you go to see Auntie?" "No." Knowing what Su Chingsang wanted to ask, Su Chinghui answered her generously. "Why? Do you think I came to Rong City for Kaiping? Wasn't it? I came to Rong City to discuss business. You should have heard from Yusen that I opened a new small company. It's just started, and it looks good at the moment. But because I don't have the support of the Li family, and I don't plan to use my previous network, I have to do a lot of things on my own." Su Chingsang didn't say anything. She didn't understand business matters. Even if Su Chinghui said it, she couldn't help. "I finished talking with a client today and was going to treat him to a meal. But he happened to be busy. I heard from Yusen that you were at the first hospital. I saw that the address on the map was very close, so I came to see you." Su Chingsang nodded and poured a cup of tea for Su Chinghui. But she didn't say anything. Although they had been father and daughter for many years, because of the previous reasons, her relationship with Su Chinghui wasn't considered close. Most of the time when they sat together, they didn't say anything. "Your mother, how is she? I know she is at your place." This was the second time Su Chinghui asked about Li Qianxue. Su Chingsang looked up at him and found that she didn't quite understand this man, who was her father. "Dad, are you concerned about my mother?" "Of course, can't I care about her?" "I don't mean that. I mean, thinking of what Li Qianxue said yesterday, thinking of the look on her face when she talked about Su Chinghui with hatred. Dad. Previously in Rong City, I encouraged you to win my mother's forgiveness. But I saw my mother yesterday, and she seemed to have some misunderstanding about you. It was polite to say that there was some misunderstanding. In fact, Li Qianxue didn't seem to have any misunderstanding about Su Chinghui. She was already prejudiced against Su Chinghui. She hated him from the bottom of her heart." "I know." Su Chinghui nodded. Li Qianxue's words on the plane yesterday made him understand what she meant. "Your mother has some misunderstanding about me. This is another reason why I came to see you today." "Dad, you don't want me to help you explain to my mother, do you?" Su Chingsang looked a little conflicted. Her eyebrows were full of disapproval. "Of course not. It's something that I can explain to myself. I just want you to help me get my mother to agree to see me. She seems to be very angry with me. She doesn't answer all my calls and doesn't reply to my messages. Even when I change my number and call her, as long as she hears my voice, she will hang up the phone." Su Qinghui looked a little helpless and self-deprecating. I just want you to help me see your mother. Su Qingsang bit her lip and looked a little embarrassed. Su Qinghui was her father. She should agree to him, but thinking of Li Qinshue's appearance yesterday, she shook her head firmly. I'm sorry, Dad. I can't help you with this. Su Qinghui was stunned for a moment, and his eyes seemed to be a little surprised. Qingsang, last time you said, I was wrong. Dad. I was wrong. Su Qingsang admitted her mistake and apologized to Su Qinghui. She lowered her head and looked a little embarrassed. I'm sorry, Dad. I should have helped you. But I can't. The way Li Qianxue acted the day before was really not quite right. The problem between her and Su Qinghui was not something that could be solved with the word misunderstanding. Li Qianxue was emotionally unstable these days. If she helped Su Qinghui again, maybe Li Qianxue would think too much. Dad. If you really want to get my mother back, you'd better find a way yourself. I promised my mother that I wouldn't mention you in front of her. Su Qinghui's face turned pale, and a bitter smile appeared on his elegant face. Can't I even mention it? Does she hate me so much? Su Qingsang was a little embarrassed and really couldn't answer. Soon, the waiter began to serve the dishes. She breathed a sigh of relief. After that, Su Qinghui finally didn't ask Su Qingsang to help him anymore. The dishes were served one by one. Su Qingsang was the one who ordered the dishes. She ordered according to Su Qinghui's habits in Lin City. Just now, Su Qinghui had something on his mind, so he didn't pay attention to what Su Qingsang ordered. Now that all the dishes were on the table, he looked at the dishes on the table, and his mood suddenly became a little complicated. At that time, he didn't feel without guilt for changing the identity of his daughter. However, under the circumstances at that time, Su Qinghui forced himself to suppress the guilt. When the identity of the two of them was revealed, Su Qingsang and Su Peijian's reactions and behavior to each other made the two daughters immediately see who was better. Especially now, Su Qingsang didn't even ask and directly ordered the dishes that he usually liked. This made him think of the times when he went out to eat with Su Peijian. 9 out of 10 times, he would go according to Su Peijian's taste. Although it was a small thing, Su Qingsang's actions warmed Su Qinghui's heart, which had been tired and wandering for a long time, and made him feel a little more at ease. Qingsang, just pretend that I didn't say what I said just now. Don't worry about Dad. You're right, I really have to rely on myself to get your mother's forgiveness, not on you guys. Dad? This time, it was Su Qingsang's turn to be surprised. Su Qinghui smiled. He shook his head gently and said, I've lived half my life. There are some things that I have to accept and take lightly. If I have to rely on others to get the person I love, how can it be considered true love? His words were already quite philosophical. Su Qingsang smiled, and there was a flash of emotion on her face. Dad, you can think like this. If you can think like this, I believe that Mom's heart is not made of stone. One day, she will accept you. Really? Of course it's true. Thank you for your kind words. Su Qinghui smiled. His smile was full of love. Qingsang, thank you. What are you thanking me for? I'm your daughter. Su Qinghui was slightly stunned, but he quickly reacted and spoke as if he was a little emotional. Yes. You're my daughter. A daughter that he had always ignored, owed, and ignored. Chapter 584. When Su Qingsang returned home, Li Qianxue and Hua Jinyao were sitting on the sofa outside. She didn't know what they were talking about, but the atmosphere was quite good. This surprised her. She could understand why Hua Jinyao had a good relationship with Xiang Kaiping. However, she was surprised that he had a good relationship with Li Qianxue. Mom, Jinyao? Qingsang, you're back. When Li Qianxue saw Su Qingsang, the smile on her face changed from the politeness she had shown to Hua Jinyao just now. Come here. I went shopping today and bought some things for you. After leaving Su Peijian's place today, she went shopping for a while and bought a lot of things. She actually didn't particularly like shopping, but she was a little upset. No matter what, Su Peijian was her daughter for so many years. She wasn't as indifferent as she appeared to be. If possible, she also hoped to continue being a filial mother with Su Peijian. But they both knew that it was impossible. She couldn't forget what Su Qinghui had done. She couldn't forget that Su Peijian had enjoyed so many years of her love in place of her biological daughter, and Su Qingsang had suffered so many years of grievance. If she and Su Peijian loved each other, then what about Su Qingsang? How could she face Su Qingsang? These are the clothes I bought for you. These are the shoes, and these are the jewelry I bought for you. Take a look. Do you like them? Mom. You bought too much. Every time, Li Qianxue liked to buy a lot of things for her. Her cloakroom was almost filled to the brim. Not much. This isn't just for you. There are also some for Jinyao. When talking about Hua Jinyao, Li Qianxue's tone was a little casual. It was as if she just bought it casually. In fact, it was true. She treated her son-in-law well only because he treated her daughter well. That was why she treated her son-in-law well. Li Qianxue wouldn't admit that she actually admired Hua Jinyao. Especially after the conversation just now. The cooperation between the two companies had been going smoothly recently, and Hua Jinyao also admired Li Qianxue. To be honest, it was quite rare for someone at this age to be willing to take on a new role and be able to do it with ease after a short period of adaptation. Thinking of Su Peijian's recent actions, Hua Jinyao's eyes dimmed. It had to be said that Su Peijian was very talented in business. Naturally, she had inherited this talent from her father. However, his foresight, methods, and style of doing things were the result of Li Qianxue and Su Qinghui's training. In this aspect, Su Qingsang was at a disadvantage. Li Qianxue picked up one of the clothes and asked Su Qingsang to try it on. When I first saw this one, I thought it suited you very well. Go ahead and try. All right. Su Qingsang didn't want to reject Li Qianxue's good intentions, so she got up and changed. When she came out again, she saw that Hua Jinyao and Li Qianxue were both stunned. Li Qianxue had good taste. Su Qingsang rarely wore bright yellow dresses. But today, he found that the color was surprisingly suitable. He looked down at his body and turned around. How is it? I knew it would suit you. Don't you agree? Li Qianxue turned around and gave Hua Jinyao a look as if she was doing him a favor. The corners of Hua Jinyao's mouth turned up slightly as he looked at Su Qingsang's new look. Yes. The dress is very beautiful. Mom has good taste. Of course. Li Qianxue's eyes were a little proud. She picked up another dress on the side and was about to let Su Qingsang try it on. Su Qingsang waved her hand. Mom. Do you want me to stay up tonight with so many clothes? That's true. You must be tired today, right? Is the hospital very busy tonight? Don't be too tired. Take care of yourself. Let me tell you, your health is your capital. Mom, you say that to me, a doctor, as if you are a doctor. Then you don't take care of your body, so I can only nag a little more. Thank you for your concern, Mom. Don't worry. I will take care of my body. Her concern made Su Qingsang very happy. She looked at Li Qianxue. In fact, deducting the stubbornness in her personality and the series of problems caused by obsession in her early years. Whether it was a mother or a wife, Li Qianxue was a very qualified role. Thinking of what Su Qinghui asked her to say today, she suddenly felt a little conflicted. Should she pass on the message for Su Qinghui? She hadn't decided this question until she was about to go to bed at night. Where did you go tonight? It was night. Hua Jinyao put his arm around Su Qingsang's waist and gently squeezed her palm. You didn't go to the hospital, did you? Because Li Qianxue came. Hua Jinyao came home earlier today. When Su Qingsang called, he was also by her side. Su Qingsang's tone was a little strange. Li Qianxue didn't hear it, but he did. How did you know? Su Qingsang was a little surprised at his sharpness. I'm your husband. How do you think I know? Su Qingsang smiled. She liked Hua Jinyao's answer. She raised her head and kissed him on the chin. My dad is here too. Su Qinghui. Hua Jinyao frowned slightly. He already knew that Su Qinghui had come to Rong City. I'm afraid he didn't just want to see you as his daughter, did he? Su Qingsang shook her head. Meeting Hua Jinyao's penetrating gaze, she leaned over and kissed him again. My husband is so smart. Hua Jinyao's words were very warm. He pinched the tip of her nose and said, You're so smart, of course, your husband has to be smarter. Don't you think so? Yes, yes, yes. You're handsome. Everything you say is right. Su Qingsang briefly told him the purpose of Su Qinghui's visit today. Then, she told Hua Jinyao about the conversation and his final decision. I think my dad has changed a lot since the divorce. Do you think this change is good or bad? Of course it's good. At least, Su Qingsang would never have imagined that she would sit down and eat with Su Qinghui peacefully. She could feel Su Qinghui's closeness to her. This closeness might be because he felt guilty, or it might be because he suddenly found out that he had a daughter. Either way, she liked this closeness. After all, he was her biological father. No one in the world could really ignore the feelings of their parents and elders. She didn't know that Su Qinghui not only felt guilty for her, but also had a new understanding and appreciation for his daughter from the bottom of his heart. Those emotions made him unconsciously start to slowly put his heart on Su Qingsang. He wanted to get along with this daughter again, get to know her again, and cultivate a father-daughter relationship again. This was Su Qinghui's determination, whether it was for his wife or daughter. He wanted to make up for it bit by bit through his own efforts. And Su Qingsang didn't know his determination now. But she could feel Su Qinghui's seriousness in the future. Do you think I should tell my mother what my dad said today? I don't think so. Hua Jinyao wasn't being mean. It was the truth. Since he thinks he doesn't need you to explain for him, you might as well not say anything. In fact, I'm also sincerely suggesting that no matter what misunderstanding your mother has with your father, no matter whether your mother still has feelings for your father or not, don't get involved in their affairs in the future. I know. I don't want to get involved either. In fact, I think my mother will make her own judgment. Although I really want to explain it to her on behalf of my father. But you're right. This is really not something I can get involved in. It's good that you know. Hua Jinyao was afraid that Su Qingsang would intervene. He could tell that Li Qianxue minded the closeness between Su Qinghui and the two children. If Su Qingsang had done too much or said too much, Hua Jinyao would have been shocked. It might give Li Qianxue the feeling that her daughter was not close to her, and that would not be good. Naturally, Su Qingsang could also think of what he could think of. Don't worry. I said I won't interfere, and I really won't. This was also a test. If Su Qinghui's feelings were real, he would not give up easily, even without any help. If he would give up just because of a little difficulty or a little misunderstanding, she would support Li Qianxue to find another one. Li Qianxue was only in her 40s. She was still very young. The Heavenly Queen even found someone younger than her by more than 10 years. With Li Qianxue's qualifications, it was entirely possible. Thinking of this, Su Qingsang suddenly smiled. Hua Jinyao looked at her, turned over, and pressed himself on top of her. What are you laughing at? Nothing, I thought of my mother. You said that she is still young and good-looking, right? Needless to say, she might not forgive my father. Instead, she will learn from that Heavenly Queen and find a man younger than her by more than 10 years. What are you thinking about? I'm just thinking about it. I think it'll be fun if that day really comes. Su Qingsang just said it casually, but she didn't expect that she would hit the nail on the head. In the future, a man who was many years younger than Li Qianxue would chase after her and not let go. Of course, this was a story for another time. Do you really want to find yourself a stepfather? No. If that day comes, my father will be pitiful. Don't worry. I think your father is determined. He won't let that day come. Su Qingsang thought of what Su Qinghui said today and nodded. That was true. How could Su Qinghui let go? She just didn't know how long it would take for him to move Li Qianxue's heart. Su Qinghui really didn't intend to let Su Qingsang put in a good word for him. However, this didn't stop him from cheating a little. For example, he went to Su Qingsang and Hua Jinyao's home. He didn't think that Li Qianxue would stay in a hotel when she came all the way to see her daughter. With Li Qianxue's personality, she probably wanted to spend 24 hours with Su Qingsang to cultivate their relationship. He guessed right. When Su Qinghui came to visit, Li Qianxue had just woken up. Yesterday, she talked to Su Qingsang for a long time and didn't even get up for breakfast. When she got up, Auntie Yu was already there. Because Li Qianxue was in Rong City, Su Qingsang asked Auntie Yu to come over to cook for the next few days. It was Auntie Yu who opened the door for Su Qinghui. She didn't know Su Qinghui, but after hearing that he was Su Qingsang's father and seeing that he looked somewhat similar to Su Qingsang, she didn't think much and let him in. Li Qianxue had just come out of the room. Although she had changed her clothes, her hair hadn't been combed and she hadn't put on makeup. He looked as if he had just woken up lazily. She raised her hand to her lips and yawned. However, before she finished yawning, she saw Su Qinghui standing in the living room. Li Qianxue froze, and she stopped yawning halfway. Her entire body revealed an extremely awkward posture. Su Qinghui suddenly smiled. He didn't seem to have seen this side of Li Qianxue. A woman at such a young age looked a little cute because of this action. This also made the smile in his eyes deepen. His smile fell into Li Qianxue's eyes, and it was obvious that he was mocking her. She restrained her expression and her eyes turned cold. What are you doing here? I came to look for you. Su Qinghui told the truth. On the plane the day before yesterday, there are many things I haven't told you, unfortunately. I don't want to hear it from you. Li Qianxue thought of the reason why he was here, and her expression turned a little ugly. Did Qingsang tell you the address? No. Su Qinghui shook his head. My daughter is very biased towards you. She told me that she wouldn't speak for me. Li Qianxue was a little suspicious and didn't believe Su Qinghui's words. It's true. I asked around for a long time before I got the address here. When facing the suspicion in Li Qianxue's eyes, Su Qinghui was a little helpless. Qianxue, no matter what, Qingsang is my daughter. It doesn't seem strange for me to ask for the address of my daughter's residence, does it? Of course it wasn't strange, but... They went to work. If you want to look for Qingsang, you can go to her hospital. If you want to look for Hua Jinyao, you can go to Tianyu Group. Qianxue, I think I just said that I'm here to look for you. I think I just said that I have nothing to say to you. If you have nothing to say, you can listen to me. Su Qinghui was still gentle. There was a faint, extremely elegant smile on his face. The way he looked at Li Qianxue was as if he was tolerating a willful child. Li Qianxue suddenly felt a little annoyed. What did he mean by this? In the past, when she liked him and loved him, she couldn't even beg Su Qinghui to look at her like this. Now that he really looked at her like this, Li Qianxue only felt disgusted. He was pretending, he was pretending. He was pretending. She hated him when she saw him. She wanted to say a few sarcastic words. At that moment, Auntie Yu came out with snacks and tea. She put down the tray and said to Li Qianxue, "Breakfast is ready. Do you want to eat it now, or do you want me to heat it up for you?" "Eat it now." Li Qianxue glanced at Su Qinghui. The hint in her eyes was very obvious. Su Qinghui acted as if he didn't see it and turned to Auntie Yu. I haven't eaten yet either. The breakfast you made should be enough, right? It's enough. Auntie Yu didn't know that the two of them didn't have a good relationship. She just thought that they were here to see their daughter and son-in-law together. Sir, madam, breakfast is very big. Hurry up and eat, or it'll be cold later. Li Qianxue gritted her teeth. Her plan to chase Su Qinghui away had failed. She glared at him and decided to ignore him and go straight to eat. Neither Hua Jinyao nor Su Qingsang liked Western food. The two of them had similar tastes in this aspect. The breakfast Auntie Yu prepared today was also Chinese. Millet porridge, shrimp dumplings, spring rolls, and fried eggs. She had just scooped a bowl of porridge. Because she was closer to Su Qinghui, she handed it to him. Unexpectedly, when Su Qinghui took it, he placed it in front of Li Qianxue. Qianxue, your porridge. Li Qianxue didn't take it. Instead, she glanced at Auntie Yu and said, Auntie Yu, please get another bowl. Auntie Yu looked at Li Qianxue and then at Su Qinghui. She was sensitive and seemed to notice that something was wrong. She quickly scooped the porridge and didn't stay for long. She turned around and said that she had to clean up and went into the kitchen. Li Qianxue took the porridge and didn't look at Su Qinghui. She let him hold the bowl of porridge in the air, looking a little awkward. Su Qinghui put the bowl back to his seat and picked up a crystal shrimp dumpling and put it on the small plate in front of Li Qianxue. I remember that you like to eat this. Li Qianxue looked at the shrimp dumpling and then at Su Qinghui. There was a hint of mockery in her eyes. She picked up the shrimp dumpling and threw it back on the original plate without thinking. Su Qinghui wasn't angry at such a rude action. You don't like it? Then have a fried egg? Su Qinghui. Li Qianxue suddenly spoke. Her voice was extremely cold and there was a hint of hatred in it. Can you let me have a meal in peace? Qianxue, if you say one more word, I'll leave right now. Li Qianxue really felt uncomfortable in her heart. The breakfast on the table was what she used to eat at the Li family's house. Needless to say, it was because Su Qingsang thought that these were her preferences, so she asked Auntie Yu to specially make them. But the truth was that these weren't what she liked to eat. These were all what Su Qinghui liked. Because she loved Su Qinghui, in the past few years, she had always treated Su Qinghui's hobbies as her own. Su Qingsang didn't know that she cooked these dishes out of filial piety as a daughter. But Su Qinghui didn't know either, and he even pretended to say that she liked them. This made her feel sick. Realizing that her emotions seemed to be fluctuating again, she forced herself to calm down. After all, she had already made up her mind and told herself that she would never be affected by Su Qinghui again. Her attitude made Su Qinghui silent. He didn't want to curry favor anymore. Instead, he quietly lowered his head to eat. Auntie Yu's cooking was indeed good, but now, neither of them was really in the mood for breakfast. They finished the breakfast in an almost eerily quiet environment. Su Qinghui didn't eat much, and Li Qianxue ate even less. After eating, Li Qianxue got up and walked towards the living room. Su Qinghui was faster than her and stopped her before she could go back to her room. Qianxue, I have something to say to you. You, Su Qinghui. I don't want to listen to you. That's the first thing. Second, I don't want to see you either. Please leave. Qianxue, this doesn't seem to be the Li family anymore. Su Qinghui revealed a rare expression that was almost like a rascal. This is Hua Jinyao's house. Don't forget, Hua Jinyao is also my son-in-law. Shameless. Li Qianxue was angry. She nodded hatefully. Okay. Okay. This is your daughter's, your son-in-law's house, right? Fine, if you like to stay, you can stay. I'll stay in a hotel, okay? After saying this, she walked straight to her room. She planned to pack her luggage and leave. Su Qinghui hurriedly followed behind her. The moment she entered the room and was about to close the door, He quickly blocked her door with his foot, flashed in, and closed the door at the same time. Li Qianxue was furious. Su Qinghui, don't go too far. For the sake of the child, I've tolerated you again and again. Don't force me. Qianxue. Su Qinghui restrained his expression, and his eyes were extremely serious. I've never forced you. I really just want to say a few words to you. A few words is enough. If you're done listening, you still want to chase me away. I'll leave right away. Li Qianxue nodded, the anger on her face unchanged. Okay, a few words, right? Say it. I'll give you 5 minutes. Her attitude was so sharp that Su Qinghui felt very uncomfortable. However, he had to calm himself down. He took a step forward, wanting to stand in front of Li Qianxue. However, she took a step back, her eyes cold. Don't come any closer. Just stand there and speak. Su Qinghui raised his hands and didn't move forward. Qianxue, you said before that I came to Rong City to see Xiang Kaiping. I want to tell you that's not the case. This is actually the first time I've come to Rong City after our divorce. I'm here because I have a business deal to discuss. It has nothing to do with Xiang Kaiping. I think it's fate that I met you. This is the comfort that God has given me. I'm very happy. Even if you misunderstand me, I'm still very happy. But I don't want you to misunderstand me for too long. I know you won't believe me, but I still want to tell you one more time. The person I love now is you. It's you, Li Qianxue. Not Xiang Kaiping, not any other woman. I want to start over with you, not because you're the daughter of the Li family, and not because you have the Li family behind you. It's because you're Li Qianxue. You're me, the woman I love the most. Li Qianxue stood there without moving, waiting for Su Qinghui to finish. When he finished, she raised her eyebrows slightly. Are you done? No. Su Qinghui shook his head. In fact, I hope that you can consider giving me a chance. I'm not asking you to forgive me immediately. I just hope that you won't chase me away and don't doubt my feelings for you. It's over? Su Qinghui didn't know what to do because of her indifference. However, he still nodded. It's over. Li Qianxue looked at the time and pointed in the direction of the door. 5 minutes are up. You can go now. Qianxue? What? I'm not talking about you. You just had to say a few words, and now you're done. You can go now. Qianxue. Please call me by my full name. Or you can call me Miss Li or President Li, don't call my name. I'm not that close to you. Su Qinghui's face darkened. Qianxue, what I said is true, I believe you. Li Qianxue nodded. She looked like she believed him, but in fact, she didn't believe a word of it. But so what? You? Su Qinghui, you love me, so I have to be grateful and accept it with tears of gratitude? Su Qinghui didn't know what to say. Chapter 585. When Li Qianxue said this, there was not much accusation on her face. However, the mockery in his eyes was clear. Su Qinghui's face suddenly turned pale. Li Qianxue sneered, you should remember what you have done, right? There were some things that I could still remember clearly even though it had been more than 20 years. I'm sure your memory isn't that bad. Right? Su Qinghui was speechless. Li Qianxue continued, Su Qinghui, I used to be blind, and all I wanted was your love. Only later did I realize how stupid I was. Because I overestimated myself, I gave you the opportunity to hurt me again and again. Even the chance to hurt my child. I'm telling you right now, it won't happen again. It won't happen again. Qianxue. I didn't, he wanted to explain, but he swallowed his words under Li Qianxue's sharp gaze. Li Qianxue stared at Su Qinghui's face without any emotion. You thought you said you loved me, and you thought you regretted it. I have to forgive you? With you? Su Qinghui, Who gave you the confidence and courage to say such shameless words? But I don't believe a single word you said, not a single punctuation. So you don't have to say anything. Qinxue. It wasn't that Su Qinghui hadn't expected to encounter such a situation. But when such a situation really happened, he really felt a strong sense of helplessness. What do I have to do to make you forgive me? I'll never forgive you. I said forever. Li Qinxue didn't mind making it clearer. No matter what you do or say, I won't believe a single word you say. Whatever you want, I won't give it to you. Su Qinghui. After the divorce, you and I will only be strangers. If you are willing, then we can part ways and live our own lives. But if you're not willing, or if you're still coveting something that you don't deserve, then you'll have to pay for it. If so, you might be disappointed. I didn't. Su Qinghui hurriedly explained, Qinxue, what I said is true. My feelings for you are serious. I'm serious too. Li Qinxue interrupted him, and her gaze suddenly became extremely sharp. I'm serious. Su Qinghui, don't do anything that you and I will regret. I'm not afraid to tell you that not only will my heart not soften because of your words, even your precious daughter will not be able to soften my heart in the slightest. Precious daughter? Surprise flashed across Su Qinghui's face. You mean Peijin? What happened to her? Feeling heartache? Are you anxious? Li Qinxue smiled, even though there was a hint of bitterness in the depths of her smile. After all, she was the daughter she had raised, but now she had become a tool to deal with Su Qinghui. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't shaken at all. But this was the only and fastest way to make Su Qinghui give up. You probably don't know, right? Your daughter, Su Peijin. Yesterday, she cried and begged me to recognize her again and bring her back to the Su family. Don't you think it's ridiculous? Qinxue? Su Qinghui's body shook. He stood there in a daze. Even though he had a disagreement with Su Peijin because of some things, she was still his beloved daughter for many years. Are you upset? Su Qinghui, you deserve this. You're the one who hurt her. Do you know that when she begged me, she looked exactly the same as you just now? I should have recorded it and showed it to you. You father and daughter are really alike. Qinxue, don't say any more. Su Qinghui's shoulders drooped, and he exuded a dejected aura. Qinxue, Peijin, she is actually innocent. If possible, please don't hurt her. He had wronged not only Su Qingsang and Li Qinxue, but also Su Peijin. She was right. He shouldn't have given her such an identity and then cruelly thrown her down from a high place. He seemed to be a failure and had been doing wrong things. He had wronged too many people. Su Qinghui, if you don't want me to hurt your precious daughter, then please stay away from me. Whether it was by chance or on purpose, I don't want to see you. To put it simply and directly. If possible, even if you see me in the future, please take a detour. Stay away from me, can you? When Li Qinxue said this, she didn't forget to reveal an extremely proud smile. Of course, if you don't want to, I don't mind doing something to Su Peijin. You know, I have the ability to. After all, she wants to be my daughter wholeheartedly. She loves me and cares about me, doesn't she? Qinxue, I beg you. Don't say any more. You won't. You're not that kind of person. Peijin, she's also your daughter. She's not. My daughter is Su Qingsang. I hope you remember this. Li Qinxue took a step forward and glared at Su Qinghui. Su Peijin is not my daughter. Let me tell you, even if I raised her for more than 20 years, even if she had a mother-daughter relationship with me for more than 20 years. It can't make up for the mistakes you've made and the sins you've committed. Do you think I'll show mercy to her for the sake of our mother-daughter relationship? You're wrong. I hate her as much as I treated her back then, and how much I loved her back then. Because those were stolen by you shameless pair of father and daughter. You stole my daughter's original happiness, stole my daughter's original motherly love. Su Qinghui, I can tell you clearly that after I found out what you've done, I can no longer have the slightest mother-daughter relationship with Su Peijian. Because if I really still have feelings for her, then I can only do as you wish and give you another chance to play me in the palm of your hand. And I don't want to give you such a chance. She hated Su Peijian as much as she had treated her before. All of this was caused by Su Qinghui. Qinxue. I really didn't. Whether you did or didn't, I don't care anymore. Just treat it as if I'm a villain who gauges a gentleman's heart. Anyway, no matter what you say or do, you can't eliminate the hatred in my heart at all. So, don't waste your energy. Su Qinghui stood there without moving. He naturally knew how difficult this path was. But when he really walked on this path, he realized that it was much more difficult than he had imagined. Li Qinxue refused to believe his words. No matter what he said, she wouldn't believe him. Qinxue. Su Qinghui stood there without moving, his eyes filled with pain and regret. Li Qinxue was unmoved. She crossed her arms in front of her chest. She had long given up on Su Qinghui. Even if she felt a little sorry for Su Peijian and felt a little soft-hearted. But when she thought of the grievances Su Qingsang had suffered over the years, she suppressed these emotions. That was why she could be so cold when she faced Su Peijian yesterday. I'll say it again. If you continue to pester me, I'll go deal with Su Peijian. You know what I can do. I can do it. More importantly, Su Peijian was still attached to her. Even if she didn't do anything, it was enough to hurt her. She knew this, and so did Su Qinghui. Okay. I'll go. Su Qinghui's shoulders drooped more and more, and his whole body revealed a sense of dejection. Qinxue, I'll go. I only hope that you won't hurt Su Peijian for the sake of the mother-daughter relationship over the past 20 years. Li Qinxue stood still, but her eyes became colder and colder. Don't hurt Su Peijian. Then he could let Su Peijian hurt Su Qingsang? With such a standard, he was indeed still thinking about the child of another woman. Su Qinghui, where on earth did you get the face to say that you love me? After Su Qinghui left, the room became quiet. Li Qinxue's figure was straight. She looked at an unknown point with an expressionless face. She didn't know what she was thinking, but her expression became a little ugly for a moment. But this ugly expression didn't last long. She used to be as gentle as water, but now she was as hard as a knife. She was right. Hua Jinyao looked at the documents in front of him with a faint smile on his face. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Hua Yifan had already entered the trap he had set. He was only one step away from completely taking the bait. When he signed the contract, it would be irrefutable evidence. At that time, he wanted to see how Grandpa would protect the second young master of the Hua family. President Hua, what else do you want to do next? You don't have to do anything next. Hua Jinyao smiled and put the document back in Yang Wenchang's hand. Just keep an eye on them and let their guard down. Then wait for them to sign the contract. Just put the contract in front of Grandpa. Yang Wenchang glanced at Hua Jinyao. He looked hesitant, as if he wanted to say something. Hua Jinyao seemed to understand what he wanted to say. He said calmly, "What? Do you think I'm too soft-hearted? Do you think I should directly hand the evidence to the board of directors after they sign the contract? Then Hua Yifan will never be able to make a comeback again? If that was really the case, Hua Yifan would have to leave Tianyu. He wouldn't be able to hold the position of vice president of Tianyu Group for long." Yang Wenchang was silent. That was indeed what he thought. Actually, I want to do that too. Hua Yifan looked at him with an indifferent expression. But Grandpa won't like it. Grandpa is old, and he values relationships. He won't like to see brothers fighting each other. Yang Wenchang didn't say anything. Given old Master Hua's personality, it was indeed possible. If Hua Jinyao really did that, He was afraid that old Master Hua would think that Hua Jinmiao was too ruthless again. Just take it as a lesson to him. Hua Jinmiao gave old Master Hua face. If he still doesn't know how to restrain himself, I won't be polite anymore. This time, he's lucky. He only hoped that Hua Yifan wouldn't be too stupid. Did he really think that he could do whatever he wanted without any scruples? If that was the case, he really couldn't blame him for being impolite. Yang Wenchang nodded and thought of something else. By the way, our company's anniversary celebration is coming up. The plan for this event has already been released. President Hua, take a look at this plan. Anniversary celebration? Hua Jinmiao thought that Li Qianxue and Su Qinghui were both in Rong City. Although he didn't want to interfere in the matter between Su Qinghui and Li Qianxue, for Su Qingsang's sake, he could give Su Qinghui a little convenience. Prepare 2 VIP invitations. I'll need them when the time comes. Yes. As for the process, you don't have to look at it in detail. It's about the same as in previous years. After Hua Jinmiao asked Yang Wenchang to leave, he suddenly thought of something. Since Su Qinghui and Li Qianxue would come to the anniversary celebration, Hua Yifan would definitely bring Su Peijian along. If that was the case, there would be a good show to watch. In the boutique, Su Qingsang lowered her head and looked at herself. Then she looked at Li Qianxue. Mom, this one? No, try on that one again. Su Qingsang held the dress and felt a little helpless. Mom, I've tried on 7 or 8. Of course you have to try it out. You're going to attend the anniversary celebration of Tianyu Group. It can be considered your first official appearance since you came to Rong City. Of course, you have to look perfect. As she spoke, she placed a white dress in Su Qingsang's hand. Be good, go and try on this one too. Su Qingsang took the dress and glanced at Hua Jinmiao, who had been standing by the side. It was all his fault. He said that he wanted to try on dresses today, but it had only been more than an hour and he still hadn't decided. Hua Jinmiao met Su Qingsang's somewhat reproachful gaze and smiled lightly. All right, you should listen to Mom. Su Qingsang had no choice but to take the dress and go in again. Li Qianxue turned around and glanced at Hua Jinmiao with a rare look of admiration in her eyes. Good patience. It's my duty. Hua Jinmiao accepted Li Qianxue's praise generously. It's my honor to accompany 2 beautiful women. Mom, aren't you going to try it on? Qingsang is the main character. Pick out her dress first. That's good too. Mom, you'll wear a dress of the same color as Qingsang. You'll look like a pair of beautiful sisters. This person really knew how to talk. Li Qianxue glanced at Hua Jinmiao. You don't have to flatter me. As long as you treat Qingsang well, it's enough for me. Mom, you've really wronged me. I'm telling the truth. If you don't believe me, ask someone else. Who would believe that you can have a daughter as old as Qingsang? Li Qianxue really laughed now. She looked at Hua Jinmiao with a rare look of satisfaction in her eyes. Su Qingsang came out in the white dress. She was already exhausted to the bone. Li Qianxue took a step back, looked up and down, and shook her head. Change it. This one isn't as good as the golden one just now. Come, try this one on again. Mom. Su Qingsang couldn't take it anymore. She looked at Hua Jinmiao with a hint of resentment. Hua Jinmiao smiled and took the dress from Li Qianxue's hands. He walked up to Su Qingsang. This is the last one. After you try it on, we'll help your mom pick out the dress together. He winked at Su Qingsang, and Su Qingsang immediately understood what he meant. She took the dress from his hands helplessly. She made a face at him and went back into the fitting room. The winking and small looks between the two of them didn't escape Li Qianxue's eyes. She saw it and felt very gratified. No matter what, she was very happy that her daughter and son-in-law had a good relationship. With Hua Jinmiao's protection, Su Qingsang wouldn't be like her for the rest of her life. When Hui Yifan entered the door, he smelled a faint smell of alcohol in the room. He took off his suit jacket and put it aside. When he entered the door, he found Su Peijian sitting on the sofa in the living room. There were a few bottles of red wine in front of her. One of them had been opened, and she had drunk most of it. At this time, Su Peijian was holding a wine glass in her hand and leaning on the sofa. She gently shook the glass in her hand. Her slightly narrowed eyes revealed a hint of confusion. When she saw him enter the door, she didn't say a word. She just picked up the wine and took a sip. Isn't it boring to drink alone? Hui Yifan walked up and sat down next to her. He reached out and grabbed the glass in her hand, then poured himself a glass. Why didn't you wait for me to drink? Wait for you for what? Su Peijian glanced at him. You're going to sign a contract with the other company, aren't you? Shouldn't you be keeping an eye on them during this period of time? Why are you back so early today? You also said that you're going to sign a contract. Since you're going to sign a contract, it means that it's basically done. Su Peijian glanced at him. Her expression wasn't as smug as he appeared to be. Why do I feel that this matter is a little too smooth? Isn't it smooth? Hui Yifan put his arm around her waist. Look, with your intelligence and my resources. Isn't it normal for it to be smooth? Su Peijian blinked at him and didn't ask any more questions. Instead, she took another glass from the side and poured herself a glass of wine. Hui Yifan looked at her actions and took a sip of wine. Before she picked up the glass, he leaned over, kissed her lips, and drank the wine. Su Peijian didn't like his actions. After being forced to drink the wine, she pushed him away. What's wrong? Are you in a bad mood? Su Peijian was indeed in a bad mood. She had been at Hui Yifan's place for 2 days. However, she didn't receive another call from Xiang Kaiping. Li Qianxue didn't call her, and neither did Xiang Kaiping. Her two mothers seemed to have abandoned her. She felt uncomfortable in her heart. There was a kind of pain that made it hard to breathe. She used to think that Li Qianxue would never give up on her, but she was wrong. Later, she thought that Xiang Kaiping would never give up on her, but she was wrong again. Now, because of a small action of hers, the two mothers didn't want her anymore. Su Peijian thought about how well Xiang Kaiping had been treating her in the past 5 months. She thought that she wouldn't care. However, when she really lost her, she realized that she wasn't as calm as she thought. It turned out that she still had expectations for Xiang Kaiping. It turned out that she wasn't as indifferent to Xiang Kaiping as she appeared to be. Now that she knew, what was the use of it? Xiang Kaiping didn't want her anymore. What happened? Nothing. Su Peijian shook her head. She didn't want to talk about these things. Keep an eye on the cooperation. I have a feeling that Hu Jimiao isn't as simple as you think. Don't worry. I heard that his mother-in-law is here. He didn't even go to work today. He went to accompany his mother-in-law. I believe that he won't be able to cause any trouble with his behavior. Mother-in-law? Wasn't it Li Qianxue? Su Peijian's mood became more and more gloomy. Hu Jimiao knew how to be a good person. He put aside his work time to accompany Li Qianxue. Was he helping Su Qingsang to please Li Qianxue? As soon as this thought came to her, Su Peijian dispelled the idea that Hu Jimiao might have suspected her and Hui Yifan. With Hu Jimiao's current state, there was probably nothing that could compare to Su Qingsang, right? Speaking of which, she was about to marry Hui Yifan. She didn't believe that Hu Jimiao could really bear it. You seemed very unhappy when you heard that Hu Jimiao went to accompany his mother-in-law? Hui Yifan suddenly approached Su Peijian. Speaking of which, his mother-in-law seems to be your former mother, right? The sarcasm in Hui Yifan's words made Su Peijian's expression change slightly. She sneered, took out the wine glass in his hand, and drank it in one gulp. She looked up at him, her eyes cold. Yes. His mother-in-law used to be my mother. So what? If you think that I'm a pitiful, powerless, illegitimate daughter now, you can abandon me. I won't beg you to have me. Putting down the wine glass, Su Peijian stood up and was about to leave. Hui Yifan turned his wrist and pulled her into his arms. Look at you, getting angry after a few words. Who's against you? I love you more than anything. Love? Su Peijian sat on his lap and looked at the smile on his face. You said you love me? What else? Hui Yifan kissed her lips. If I didn't love you, why would I take the risk and use my position in Tianyu Group to play such a big game with you? Su Peijian didn't completely believe Hui Yifan's words. Of course, half of the reason why he was willing to play such a big game was because of her. However, she didn't know the other half of the reason. It was because he didn't want to be under Hu Jinyao for the rest of his life. He was ambitious, and everything he did was for himself. You don't seem to believe me? Hui Yifan leaned over and firmly held her waist in his arms. It seems that I have to do something to make you believe me. What can you do? Su Peijian didn't think that Hui Yifan could get married with her now. It's the anniversary celebration of Tianyu Group in 2 days. How about you be my female companion? He whispered into her ear, speaking of which, I've never brought a female companion other than my secretary to the anniversary celebration. You're the first. Are you honored? The anniversary celebration of Tianyu Group was not a small matter. Not only old Master Hua, but the Hua family also had business partners. All the employees who had worked for Tianyu Group would be there. It could be said that except for those who were on duty, most of them would be present. He was willing to bring Su Peijian to the anniversary celebration, which was another kind of affirmation of her identity. It was twice as formal as meeting her parents. Anniversary celebration? Su Peijian narrowed her eyes. Hua Jinyao is working with the Li family, so his mother-in-law should be here too, right? She should be. Hui Yifan looked at Su Peijian's calculating eyes and suddenly smiled. Why? What did you think of? Nothing, I'll go. Li Qianxue thought so little of her. She thought that she had a motive for getting close to Hui Yifan. Then she would let Li Qianxue take a good look. Even if she didn't have the Su family and the Li family as her backing, she could still do well. Chapter 586. I like that you're so smart. Su Peijian was still daydreaming. Hui Yifan's hand had already reached into her clothes. Don't worry. I'll have someone come over tomorrow to measure you and order a dress. I promise you'll be in the limelight on the anniversary. Really? Su Peijian put her hand on his shoulder and leaned close to his cheek. If that's the case, I really have to thank you first. Okay. You can start now and express your gratitude. Hui Yifan's hand tightened and Su Peijian's clothes were torn in half. Su Peijian glared at him. This man could be very perverted sometimes. He could take it off easily, but he liked to tear it. Pervert. Don't you like me because I'm a pervert? Hui Yifan smiled. Don't worry. I'll make you like me even more. Su Peijian put her arms around his neck and said seductively, Really? Then prove it to me. My pleasure. On the sofa in the living room, the two of them rolled together. At that moment, Su Qingsang and Li Qianxue were all thrown to the back of her mind. She only needed to firmly grasp Hui Yifan's heart to let them know. Su Peijian also had the right to be on equal footing with them. Before Su Qinghui came, he had planned to call Su Peijian in addition to Su Qingsang. He wanted to ask her how she was doing recently. Especially after parting on bad terms with Li Qianxue, he wanted to know how Su Peijian was doing recently. It had nothing to do with anything else. After so many years of caring for her, he was used to thinking about his daughter. However, to his disappointment, Su Peijian didn't answer his call. He called Su Peijian several times, but she didn't answer. Su Qinghui could have called Xiang Kaiping directly. But if he did that, something else might happen. After thinking about it, Su Qinghui could only send Su Peijian a message, telling her that he had come to Rome City and that he wanted to see her if possible. Unfortunately, Su Peijian still didn't reply. Su Qinghui knew that he probably wouldn't be able to see Su Peijian this time. If she wasn't willing to see him, given her personality, she definitely wouldn't pick up his call. After finishing his work, Su Qinghui was about to book a plane ticket back to Lin City when he received Su Qingsang's call. She told him that he had been invited to Tianyu Group's anniversary celebration next week. Anyway, he was also in Rong City. If he went to attend, he could also get to know some people in Rong City's business circle, which would also be helpful to him. Su Qinghui, whose company had just started to make progress, certainly wouldn't let go of this opportunity. What made him even happier was that Su Qingsang and Hua Jinyao were willing to invite him. This made him very happy. Amidst his happiness, he thought of Su Peijian. After the anniversary celebration, he would visit her again. Su Qinghui didn't expect to see Su Peijian on such an occasion. Tianyu Group's anniversary celebrations were bigger and bigger every year. It was getting more and more lively every year. This year was no exception. Tianyu chose the largest convention center in Rome City as the venue. It was also the largest and most functional one. The entire center was bustling with noise and excitement today. The first and second floors of the convention center were divided into two parts. One was downstairs, where the Tianyu Group's own employees came to participate. They could hold all kinds of activities here, such as raffles and buffets. The other part was upstairs, where the Tianyu Group's higher-ups, directors, and all the business partners who worked with the Tianyu Group were. Including Hua Jinyao's childhood friends, Tang Mohan, Wan Xianyang, Qing Xianyun, and Li Junsheng, who happened to have time this time, also came. When they arrived, the other elders of the Hua family, Old Master Hua, Hua Yangyuan, Hua Mingguang, Hua Mingliang, Nian Chunya, and Hua Mingmei, all came. As the hosts, Hua Jinyao and Su Qingsang hadn't arrived yet. Old Master Hua was talking to Hua Yangyuan when he saw Hua Jinyao coming in from afar. Of course, Hua Jinyao didn't come alone. He held Su Qingsang's hand by his side. Su Qingsang finally decided on the gown today after Li Qianshue's repeated efforts that day. The light gold fabric was tailored to fit her body. The biggest advantage of this gown was that it was layered. The chiffon fabric underneath was layered. There was a layer of gauze on the surface and another layer on the inside. The outer layer of gauze was light, and the patterns embroidered on the inner layer of gauze could be faintly seen. It was faintly discernible, but it was more charming than being completely visible. The neckline design revealed the perfect lines of Su Qingsang's shoulders. It matched with the pair of golden high heels on her feet. His entire person seemed to have a kind of floating noble aura. In order to match her, although Hua Jinyao's gown was dark, he wore a golden tie today. The dark patterns of the cufflinks also complemented Su Qingsang's gown. The two of them attracted the attention of most of the people present as soon as they entered the room. Whether it was these business partners, the directors of Tianyu Group, or the higher-ups, they all knew Hua Jinyao. But many people still didn't know Su Qingsang. Now that they saw her standing together with Hua Jinyao, what else could they not understand? The Su Qingsang in front of them was the legendary wife of the president. The woman who was carefully protected by Hua Jinyao. Outside the banquet hall, Li Qianshue wasn't in a hurry to go in. Just now, Hua Jinyao asked her to go in with him, but she refused. She would never let Su Qingsang miss such a chance to be in the limelight. Now was the moment that belonged to her daughter. She hoped that Su Qingsang would be the brightest one in the entire venue. And she also believed that the effect brought about by her own judgment and Su Qingsang's own temperament would definitely shock the entire venue. Sure enough, it didn't take long for exclamations and applause to be heard from inside. Li Qianshue smiled and picked up the bag in her hand. Just as she was about to go in, she didn't expect to see a person at the door who shouldn't have been there. Su Qinghui. Why was he here? When Li Qianshue saw Su Qinghui, her expression suddenly turned ugly. Especially when she saw the clothes he was wearing, her expression became even uglier. The color of my gown is the color of your tie. This was a popular way to show your love in a subtle way. Today was the anniversary of Tianyu Group. Li Qianxue chose a golden gown for Su Qingsang, which was dignified and elegant. The color he chose for himself was dark red. It was a happy day for the other party, so it was also very appropriate for her to wear red. The dark red long qipao embroidered with patterns looked very appropriate on her. Especially when Li Qianxue was so young. The qipao could only make her look more elegant and exquisite. But it didn't include letting her see that Su Qinghui was wearing a Chinese tunic suit of the same color as her. He stood in front of her in an extremely elegant manner. When he saw the smile on her face, a hint of surprise flashed across his face. Especially when he saw her qipao, the smile on his face became even more obvious. Su Qinghui. You, Qianxue, don't we have a tacit understanding? Su Qinghui seemed to know what she wanted to say and interrupted her. For him, if Li Qianxue's understanding of him was 10 points, then his understanding of Li Qianxue was at least 30 to 40 points. On such a day, Li Qianxue would definitely wear a relatively festive dress. But she had never liked bright red. Dark red was a very good choice. It was elegant and dignified, but also festive. All the celebrities who came and went liked to wear dresses, but Li Qianxue actually liked qipaos. This was something he also knew. Therefore, it was most suitable for him to wear a Chinese tunic suit to face her. And now that he saw Li Qianxue, he knew that he had made the right bet. Hua Jinyao. Hua Jinyao, you're really something. He actually didn't mention a word. He actually invited Su Qinghui. If Li Qianxue had known, she definitely wouldn't have come. Of course, she also knew that this matter couldn't be completely blamed on Hua Jinyao. It would be strange if Su Qingsang didn't know. But now, she didn't want to blame her daughter. She only wanted to scold Hua Jinyao. Don't blame Hua Jinyao. No matter what, I'm his father-in-law. Isn't it only right for him to invite me? After Su Qinghui received Su Qingsang's call, he knew that Li Qianxue would also come to this banquet. Although Su Qingsang's tone didn't say it explicitly, it was already quite obvious. This was also the reason why he tried his best to guess what Li Qianxue would wear. Fortunately, he guessed correctly. It's only right. Of course it's only right. Li Qianxue looked at Su Qinghui, her expression cold and mocking. Speaking of which, Su Qinghui, I really have to admire you. You treated Qingsang like that, but you can still make her help you like this. You're becoming more and more good at buying people's hearts. Qianxue, don't talk about Qingsang like that. I didn't buy her off. I just let her see my sincerity. Sincerity? He, Su Qinghui, would also have sincerity. Yes, sincerity towards Xiang Kaiping. Li Qianxue didn't want to talk to Su Qinghui, so she walked inside. No matter what Su Qinghui was wearing, it had nothing to do with her. She didn't come today for Su Qinghui. However, Su Qinghui walked to her side and reached out his hand to her. Qianxue, let's go in together. In your dreams. Li Qianxue took a step back, and her suppressed voice revealed a hint of anger. Let me tell you, we're already divorced. Please stay away from me. I know we're already divorced. But now this is the Hua family's home court, the home court of Tianyu Group. You don't want others to know that the wife of the president of Tianyu Group doesn't have a good relationship with her parents, do you? So what? Li Qianxue glared at him coldly. Old Master Hua knows very well about my divorce with you. He also knows very well about Qingsang's background. I really don't think there's a need for me to hide it in front of others. As for you, Su Qinghui, I really don't like your unscrupulous behavior. After saying this, she completely ignored Su Qinghui and went straight into the venue. Su Qinghui looked at her graceful figure, and a hint of bitterness appeared on his face. He didn't expect that even if he brought Su Qingsang out, Li Qianxue wouldn't be soft-hearted at all. Thinking about it, he was really discouraged. When Li Qianxue entered the banquet hall, although it didn't cause as much of a stir as Su Qingsang and Hua Jinyao, it was enough to leave a deep impression. She was charming, but not fierce. She had an imposing manner, a good look, a good figure, and a good temperament. Some people who didn't know who she was had already begun to secretly ask about her. Lu Tongjia had been in a bad mood these days. After the fight with Hua Jinyao because of Zhang Yichen, she hadn't been in a good mood for a while. She kept wondering if she was wrong. But no one could tell her the answer. There were several times when she wanted to ask Hua Mingguang if she had done something wrong back then. But she didn't have the courage. Not everyone had the courage to face the mistakes they had made and the misunderstandings they had had. Lu Tongjia was the same. She could only remind herself over and over again that she was not wrong. She was not wrong at all. It was Hua Jinyao who killed Jin Kai and Wushuang. It was all Hua Jinyao's fault. It seemed that only by doing this could she find some comfort. It seemed that only by doing this could she feel a little better. Until she saw Hua Jinyao with her own eyes. She saw Su Qingsang come in with Hua Jinyao just now. Putting aside her dislike for Su Qingsang, she had to admit that Su Qingsang and Hua Jinyao were indeed very compatible in appearance. Su Qingsang and Hua Jinyao were a perfect match in terms of appearance. One was tall and handsome, and the other was delicate and pretty. Ever since she married into the Hua family, Su Qingsang had also undergone some fundamental changes. She began to act more elegantly and calmly. Just like now, she was wearing a golden dress, which was very suitable for her. When she came in with Hua Jinyao, there was a faint smile in her eyes. The two of them held each other's hands tightly. Needless to say, it was obvious that they were very close to each other. Such a scene was a little harsh in Lu Tongjia's eyes. Stop being dirty. Only Hua Jinyao believed in her innocence. Now, looking at the two of them showing off their love, she only felt suffocated. She had already felt a little remorseful, but now she felt a little less. All that was left was dissatisfaction with Su Qingsang. She had clearly behaved inappropriately, but Hua Jinyao protected her wholeheartedly. He was blind and couldn't see it. Such a woman, had also married into the Hua family. When she saw Li Qianxue, who was wearing a dark red dress and slowly walking in, Lu Tongjia's face darkened even more. It was nothing for Hua Jinyao to invite Li Qianxue. However, Li Qianxue was Su Qingsang's mother, and he didn't even greet her. This was already extremely disrespectful. More importantly, Li Qianxue came to Rong City, but she didn't visit the Hua family first. What was this? Did she not take the Hua family seriously? If that was the case, what did she mean by appearing now? It wasn't that Li Qianxue didn't notice the curious and inquisitive gazes of the people around her. However, she couldn't care about other people now. She quietly walked in the direction of old Master Hua. Then, she stood about a meter in front of him. Hua Jinyao and Su Qingsang had just greeted old Master Hua and the other elders. At this moment, they were standing to the side and chatting with Hua Yangyuan and the other two elders. When she saw Li Qianxue come in, Su Qingsang smiled at her and gave her a reassuring look before standing to the side. Old Master. Congratulations. Niece, you're here. Old Master Hua had heard Hua Jinyao mention that Li Qianxue had come to Rong City before. Why didn't Brother Li come with you? My father stayed in Lin City to take care of things. Li Qianxue said half jokingly and half seriously, or, does the old master not want to see me? How could that be? You don't know how happy I'm that you're here, niece. Come, let me introduce you. Before old Master Hua could finish his sentence, he saw another person come in. This time, it was Su Chenghui. Su Chenghui was the same as Li Qianxue. When he came in, he also attracted a lot of attention. The man who was almost 50 years old had a mature charm. He had the maturity and steadiness that had accumulated over time, and his appearance was elegant. Most importantly, after the divorce, Su Chenghui was more calm and composed than before. The sharpness and obsession that he once had disappeared, and he looked very different from before. The dark patterned Chinese tunic suit made him look even more elegant and handsome. People would believe it if they said that he was less than 40 years old. Step by step, he walked steadily to old Master Hua. Hello. You're old Master Hua Yangping, right? I am, and you are. Just by looking at Su Qinghui's appearance, old Master Hua had already guessed who he was. I'm Su Qinghui, Qingsang's father. Su Qinghui reached out his hand to old Master Hua. His expression was calm and apologetic. I'm sorry. When Qingsang and Jinyao returned to Rong City, I happened to have some things to deal with, so I didn't come to visit the Hua family immediately. I'm sorry. He openly admitted his mistake, and the expression on his face was sincere and calm. Old Master Hua reached out and shook hands with him. In-law, you're welcome. It's all a small matter. We're not that polite people. That's because old Master Hua is magnanimous. He doesn't care about us juniors. As Su Qinghui spoke, he took out a small box from his pocket. It's my first time meeting you, so I didn't prepare anything. I prepared a gift in a hurry. I hope you'll like it. You're welcome, you're welcome. Old Master Hua looked at Su Qinghui and didn't refuse his gift. His gaze fell on Li Qianxue, and then looked at Su Qinghui. His eyes looked over, and they were very shrewd. Nephew, did you come with niece? The way they addressed each other as eldest niece and eldest nephew was very intimate. Invisibly, the distance between the two sides was shortened a lot. No. Yes. Two different voices sounded at the same time. Old Master Hua looked at Su Qinghui, and then at Li Qianxue. He heard that they were divorced. It turned out that the two of them appeared one after the other, and they were wearing the same color gowns, so he thought, Old Master, I still have something to say to Qingsang. Excuse me for a moment. It wasn't that Li Qianxue didn't want to give Old Master Hua face, but her disgust for Su Qinghui had overwhelmed everything else. She glanced at Su Qinghui coldly, and then bowed to Old Master Hua with great respect. Old Master, I'll talk to you later. She turned around and walked in Su Qingsang's direction. Before she left, she didn't even look at Su Qinghui out of the corner of her eye. Su Qinghui looked at Li Qianxue's back and smiled bitterly. Li Qianxue actually didn't give him face at all. She didn't even want to pretend in front of outsiders. Nephew? Old Master Hua's words brought Su Qinghui back to his senses. He looked at Old Master Hua very gently. Old Master, I'm sorry. Old Master Hua waved his hand. It's not that I'm sorry. Every family has its own difficulties. I understand. But you're here today. It's just in time. I have something to talk to you about. Talk to him? Su Qinghui was a little confused. What did he want to talk to him about? Speaking of which, nephew is a lucky man. His daughters are all more capable than the other. Su Qinghui stood there. For a moment, he didn't quite understand what Old Master Hua meant. Old Master? It's a little too early to talk about this matter now. But I think since our children have come this far, it's naturally a matter of time. Naturally, success will follow when the conditions are right, don't you think so? Come this far? Which step was this step? Su Qinghui didn't quite understand and was about to ask. On the other side, there was another commotion at the entrance of the venue. Someone came in. Su Qingsang and Hua Jinyao had just greeted a few elders of the Hua family. The two of them didn't have time to catch their breath. Su Qinghui and Li Qianxue came in. She saw that Li Qianxue didn't give Su Qinghui any face. She directly left him and walked towards her. The bosses of two business partners happened to come over at this time to greet Hua Jinyao. After greeting them, Hua Jinyao introduced Su Qingsang to them. Su Qingsang greeted him with a smile that was appropriate for the occasion. Li Qianxue walked over at this time. Let me introduce you. This is the CEO of the Li Corporation in Lin City, Ms. Li Qianxue. She's also my mother-in-law. Hua Jinyao generously introduced Li Qianxue to some business partners. He also roughly told her about the other party's identity and the type of business the company operated. He was so polite. Li Qianxue originally wanted to blame him for calling Su Qinghui over but not informing her, but she couldn't say anything else. Like Su Qingsang, at such a time, she could only greet these people with a smile on her face. After a round, she received several business cards. Some of them might indeed be able to form a cooperative relationship with the Li Corporation in the future. She accepted Hua Jinyao's favor, so it was naturally not good for her to find him to settle the score with Su Qinghui. However, when there was no one around, she gave Su Qingsang a look. The matter between her and Su Qinghui would naturally be handled by their elders. If Su Qingsang wanted to help Su Qinghui, she couldn't object, but she would indeed be very disappointed. Su Qingsang seemed to know what she was thinking and stepped forward to hold her arm. She had a flattering smile on her face. "Mom, I was wrong." She apologized in a low voice. Li Qianxue glanced at her reproachfully, but in the end, she couldn't bear to blame her. At this time, she also noticed the commotion at the entrance of the venue. She turned her head with Su Qingsang, and the mother and daughter saw the figure who came in at the same time. Li Qianxue and Su Qingsang frowned at the same time. The woman who came in slowly was none other than Su Peijian. They weren't the only ones who saw it. Su Qinghui also saw it. Chapter 587. The commotion at the entrance of the venue was obviously caused by Su Peijian. Speak of the devil. Naturally, old Master Hua also saw Su Peijian, who came in with Hua Yifan. With a smile on his face, he looked at Su Qinghui warmly and teasingly. "Nephew, I'm afraid you came to Rong City because of Peijian, right?" "Because of Peijian? What happened to Peijian?" Su Qinghui still didn't understand the situation, so he didn't rush to answer. His eyes were fixed on Su Peijian. He didn't know Hua Yifan, who was standing next to Su Peijian, but that didn't affect the expression on Su Peijian's face. Su Peijian always knew what she wanted. Her facial features were bright and beautiful, completely different from Su Qingsang's. In contrast to Su Qingsang's golden dress, Su Peijian had chosen a very festive bright red dress. One-line collar design, narrow waist, long tail. Su Peijian, who entered the venue in heels that were nearly 10 centimeters high, was extremely ostentatious at this moment. Bright, beautiful, sexy. Everyone's gaze fell on her. It wasn't just because she was accompanied by Hua Yifan, the vice president of Tianyu Group. It was also because of the feeling she gave off. She held Hua Yifan's hand and walked step by step towards old Master Hua. Hua Yifan held Su Peijian's hand with one hand and leaned close to her ear at the same time. "I told you, I will make you the most dazzling existence today." "Thank you." Su Peijian looked straight ahead, and the smile on her face became more and more meaningful. "But I can do it without you. I like how confident you are." Hua Yifan smiled. As the two of them spoke, they walked through the crowd and stood in front of old Master Hua. "Grandpa Hua." "Grandpa." Su Peijian was the first to greet them. The smile on her face was very friendly. "I'm a little late." "Grandpa Hua, please don't take offense." "How could that be?" Old Master Hua looked at Su Peijian, and the smile on his face didn't stop. "Peijian, you're dressed up very well today. Very festive." "Thank you for your compliment, Grandpa." Yifan had picked this suit. "I didn't expect him to have such good taste. My foresight is naturally good." As Hua Yifan spoke, his eyes finally turned to Su Qinghui. Su Peijian also saw Su Qinghui. She smirked and took a step forward. "Dad. What a coincidence to meet you here." "Coincidence?" Su Qinghui didn't think it was a coincidence. He remembered that he had been calling Su Peijian, but she hadn't picked up a single call. What did the man beside her call old Master Hua? "Grandpa?" So he's also a member of the Hua family? What was his relationship with Hua Jinyao? Why would he be with Su Peijian? Why was Su Peijian with another member of the Hua family? Dad. The smile on Su Peijian's face did not fade because of Su Qinghui's shock. Instead, she took another step forward and stood directly in front of Su Qinghui. Are you so happy to see me here that you forgot to speak? Su Qinghui came back to his senses. He looked at Su Peijian, then at Hui Yifan, who was standing behind her. Peijian, this is, hello, uncle. Hui Yifan stepped forward and extended his hand to Su Qinghui. My name is Hui Yifan. I'm Hua Jiniao's cousin. I'm now the vice president of Tianyu Group. Su Qinghui looked at Hui Yifan. He had a good temperament and a good temperament. There was nothing to say about his height and appearance. The Hua family had good genes, and their descendants were all outstanding. However, the man in front of him had shrewdness in his eyes, and there was a hint of arrogance in his expression. Compared to Hua Jiniao, he was slightly inferior. All of Su Qinghui's thoughts raced in an instant. He politely reached out to shake hands with Hui Yifan's extended hand. Hello, uncle. Su Qinghui should be younger than Hua Mingliang, so it was appropriate for Hui Yifan to call him that. Letting go of his hand, he took a step back and stood next to Su Peijian again. I've heard Peijian talk about you many times. I finally have the chance to meet you today. Hui Yifan gently placed his big hand on Su Peijian's shoulder and looked at Su Qinghui with a sincere smile on his face. Since you have the opportunity to be in Rong City this time, why don't we pick a time later to discuss the matter between me and Peijian? Su Qinghui's expression was calm. He was an extremely smart person. After listening to Hui Yifan's self-introduction, the way he looked at Su Peijian was a little different. Su Peijian knew that he was in Rong City, but she deliberately didn't answer his call. She chose to appear on such an occasion because she was sure that he wouldn't reject her. The matter between you and Peijian? Su Qinghui's voice was indifferent. Are you referring to your relationship, or something else? Of course it's something else. Hui Yifan smiled brightly. To be able to get the elders from both sides together, of course it's to discuss my marriage with Peijian. Marriage? Su Qinghui looked at Hui Yifan and then at Su Peijian. Finally, his eyes fell on Su Peijian's face, but his words were directed at Hui Yifan. How long have you known each other? How long have you been dating? We've known each other for more than 3 months. If you're talking about dating, it's only recently. Hui Yifan told the truth. Su Qinghui frowned and stared at Su Peijian's face without blinking. 3 months? Dating is only recently, and you've already decided to get married? Is there a problem? Dad? Su Peijian smiled faintly and held Hui Yifan's arm with her hands. Do you think it's too fast? But we don't think it's fast at all. Su Qinghui looked at Su Peijian. His eyes were pure and unfamiliar. She was his daughter. He had held her in the palm of his hand and cared for her for more than 20 years. He had almost never scolded her. But now, he felt that he didn't recognize this daughter anymore. You've already decided? Yes. Su Peijian smiled brightly and looked at Hui Yifan. The love in her eyes was obvious. If I wasn't sure, why would Yifan bring me to such an occasion? Su Qinghui's expression was serious. He wanted to say something. On the other side, old Master Hua also heard the commotion. He laughed twice. Good, good, good. I'm old, and I like to see my children happy. If Yifan and Peijian can really be together. It's also a joyous occasion. Nephew, since you have time today, we can have a good talk about this. Su Qinghui didn't respond to old Master Hua's words. He just stared at Su Peijian, as if he wanted to see into the depths of her heart. Su Peijian didn't avoid his gaze. Instead, she looked at Su Qinghui calmly. Su Qinghui narrowed his eyes slightly. Before Su Peijian could react, he suddenly reached out and pulled her to his side. Before pulling Su Peijian away, Su Qinghui forced himself to maintain his composure. He turned around and looked at old Master Hua. Old master, I'm sorry. I have something to discuss with my daughter. Excuse me for a while. It's okay. Help yourselves. Old Master Hu pointed to the side as he spoke. The row of rooms at the back over there is specially prepared for guests to rest. Okay. Thank you. After saying this, Su Qinghui took Su Peijian's hand and walked to the back. Su Peijian wanted to pull her hand back, but Su Qinghui held it tightly. She was a little helpless. She couldn't break free, so she could only let Su Qinghui take her to the back. As they walked, she saw Su Qingsang and Li Qianxue standing not far away from the corner of her eye. She had been maintaining a good demeanor, but at this moment, there was finally a slight crack in her demeanor. Su Qingsang and Li Qianxue saw Su Peijian come in just now, but neither of them moved. No matter what Su Peijian's purpose was with Hui Yifan, they wouldn't be afraid. Another principle was that as long as Su Peijian didn't cause trouble and didn't take the initiative to provoke her, Su Qingsang and Li Qianxue wouldn't take the initiative to do anything to her. This was a tacit understanding between the mother and daughter that didn't need to be said. So they watched Su Peijian and Hui Yifan walk to Old Master Hua, and then watched them chat there. They watched Su Peijian and Hui Yifan talk to Su Qinghui. Although they were far away, they couldn't hear what they were talking about. But Li Qianxue and Su Qingsang weren't stupid. At this point, they could more or less guess what was going on. Now seeing Su Qinghui hurriedly pull Su Peijian away, the mother and daughter looked at each other. They didn't quite understand what Su Qinghui wanted to do. What was going on? But Li Qianxue was sure of one thing. That was, Su Peijian was really going to marry into the Hua family. She turned to face Su Qingsang, and there was a hint of worry in her eyes. As if knowing what she was thinking, Su Qingsang squeezed her hand with an indifferent expression. Mom, don't worry. I'm fine. Whether Su Peijian was really going to marry Hui Yifan or not, it didn't affect her at all. Li Qianxue couldn't help but be worried. Su Peijian's hoarse cry that day seemed to be right beside her ears. It wasn't that she hadn't thought about whether she was being too cruel to Su Peijian. But if she wasn't cruel to Su Peijian, she would have to be cruel to Su Qingsang. If that was the case, she was even more unwilling. Su Qinghui didn't notice the mother and daughter's gazes. With a serious expression, he held Su Peijian's hand and went to the lounge in the back. As he closed the door, Su Qinghui turned to face Su Peijian. He wasn't in a hurry to speak. His eyes, which were usually gentle and refined, were now faintly sharp as they landed on Su Peijian. Su Peijian felt uncomfortable under his gaze, but she forced herself not to show it. Dad, why are you looking at me like that? Is there something on my face? As usual, Su Peijian looked at Su Qinghui with a bit of a spoiled tone. However, Su Qinghui wasn't in the mood to joke with her like before. Why? Like Li Qianxue, Su Qinghui wasn't stupid. Why did Su Peijian want to be with Hui Yifan? He didn't think that such a short period of time was enough for Su Peijian and Hui Yifan to develop feelings for each other. He didn't believe it. What why? Su Peijian blinked and looked puzzled. Dad, what are you talking about? You know what I'm talking about. Su Qinghui's expression was very serious. Why do you want to be with Hui Yifan? Why do you want to marry into the Hua family? The expression on Su Peijian's face finally changed a little. She stopped smiling and stared at Su Qinghui. Dad, what do you mean? What do you want? After all, she was the daughter he had raised for so many years. Su Qinghui still had a basic understanding of her. What do you want? What are you planning? Ha. Su Peijian smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. She looked at Su Qinghui coldly, her expression cold. Su Qingsang marrying Hua Jinyao is a matter of course. Now I'm going to marry Hui Yifan. In your eyes, I have ulterior motives? Su Qinghui didn't answer. He just stared at Su Peijian's face and said, Then tell me, you're not. Dad. Su Peijian also responded to Su Qinghui with a serious face. Am I still your daughter now? Su Qinghui didn't answer this question. His expression changed slightly, but only for a moment. Su Peijian didn't need his answer at this time. She only needed to vent the emotions in her heart at this time. Is it because after I switched identities with Su Qingsang, I'm no longer your daughter? Otherwise, why do you, my mother, and everyone else in the world seem to think that everything I do is for Su Qingsang? Dad. In fact, I'm not your child, am I? Did you pick me up from an orphanage? Is it because in your hearts, I'm no longer worthy of a good life, right? There wasn't much anger in her voice. All the anger had already exploded once when she faced Li Qianxue that day. But this time, she still felt hurt and uncomfortable. Because the person who questioned her had become Su Qinghui. How could it be Su Qinghui? She was raised by his side. From the age of 16, he brought her into the company and taught her bit by bit. At that time, he only wished that he could add all the beauty of the world to her. She was his little princess. She thought that she would always be Su Qinghui's little princess. She even had a kind of blind confidence. Her trust in Su Qinghui was higher than anyone else's. She believed that even if the whole world didn't want her, Su Qinghui wouldn't abandon her. He was her father. For her, he could swap her identity with Su Qingsang. For her, he could make Li Qianshue's daughter an illegitimate daughter. For her, he could endure for so many years. However, Su Peijian never thought that one day, even Su Qinghui would start to turn against her. Even he wasn't on her side anymore. How could this be? She stared at Su Qinghui with her eyes wide open. She wasn't looking at her father, but at a stranger. Dad. Why are you doing this to me? Why are you doing this to me? What did I do wrong? Su Peijian asked 3 questions in a row. With each question, she took a step forward and finally stood in front of Su Qinghui. The distance between the father and daughter was less than 5 centimeters. It was just that the intimate father-daughter relationship had completely disappeared at this time. Dad. Tell me. What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? She had thought that she could endure it, but now she found that she really couldn't. She reached out and grabbed Su Qinghui's arm, looking at him with a pair of red eyes. Dad. Tell me. What did I do wrong? Why? Why are you all doing this to me? She looked very much like Su Qinghui's mother. When she looked at Su Qinghui like this, his heart trembled. It was undeniable that he had doted on Su Peijian for so many years, not only because he was angry with Li Qianxue, but also because of her appearance. At this moment, she stared at him with a face that was similar to his mother's. For a moment, Su Qinghui had a feeling that he had nowhere to hide. I changed my identity willingly, didn't I? Did you ask me? You didn't get my consent. You made me the daughter of the Su family. Did you ask me? Did I want things to become like this? Did I? You. And my mother. I have 2 mothers. It's all you. You made me what I am today. It's all you that made me like this. I don't understand why all of you are blaming me now. What right do you have to blame me? Su Peijian stared at Su Qinghui's face and insisted on an answer. Tell me. What right do you have to blame me? Mom said that I married Hui Yifan with ulterior motives. Why do you ask me? Okay. Even if I have ulterior motives. Can't I? Can't I marry Hui Yifan? Why can Su Qingsang marry Hui Jinyao? Why can't I marry Hui Yifan? So what if I don't want to marry her? Why did she take my mother and my father away? She took my brother, my home, and everything away from me. I had to swallow my anger. I had to smile and clap my hands. I had to tell all of you that it didn't matter. She did a good job. How could she do that? Su Peijian was aggressive. Every word made Su Qinghui speechless. Looking at Su Peijian's agitated face, he slowly took her hand and held it in his. His voice was filled with love and helplessness. It's not Chingsang's fault. It's my fault. Peijin, do you understand? It's not Chingsang's fault. It's my fault. If you want to blame someone, hate them. You can blame me, you can hate me. But Chingsang is innocent. He already owed Su Chingsang a lot. He didn't want to owe her anymore. Su Peijin waved her hand. She didn't want to hear his explanation. She pulled her hand back, her eyes cold. It's her fault. Her existence is a mistake. If it weren't for her, I would still be the daughter of the Su family. If it weren't for her, I would still be the daughter of the Li family. Dad. You don't have to explain for her. Don't you know that the more you say she's innocent, the more I will hate her? Peijin. Su Qinghui's expression didn't look good. He had a feeling that Su Peijin would do something he didn't want to see. Of course, you don't have to think too much. Su Peijin suddenly smiled. At this stage, I really don't have the ability to do anything. You have to know that your daughter is amazing now. She is the eldest granddaughter-in-law of the Hua family. She is the person Hua Jinyao loves the most. Even if I want to do something to her, it won't be easy, right? Su Peijin said this calmly, but Su Qinghui understood what she meant. If I give you a chance, you will really, yes, I will. Su Peijin raised her eyebrows and looked at Su Qinghui boldly. Why wouldn't I? After all, she took everything from me. Isn't it right for me to repay her a little? Su Peijin. Su Qinghui called out the name rather weakly. He felt a little uncomfortable in his heart. He was panting heavily. I've said it before. I'm sorry about this. It's my fault. You, Dad. Su Peijin suddenly smiled. She tilted her head and looked at Su Qinghui coquettishly. Look at you. Are you crazy? You are you, and she is she. I didn't say I would forgive you for your mistake. Su Peijin smiled, very openly. But under that smile, it was desolation. Why? From the moment she changed her identity until now, no one asked her if she wanted to accept such a fate. No one cared about her and asked if she was not used to such a change of identity. Her mother, who had raised her for more than 20 years, and her father, who had doted on her for more than 20 years, was not there. Every single one of them was worried and afraid. They were afraid that she would do something to Su Chingsang. If Su Chingsang was the treasure in their palms, then what about her? What was she? She didn't want much. She just wanted them to treat her the way they used to. Why couldn't they? Dad. The more hatred she felt in her heart, the brighter the smile on her face. Su Peijin moved closer and stared at Su Qinghui's face. Listen carefully. I didn't say I would forgive you. Su Qinghui looked at Su Peijin and felt speechless for a moment. Su Peijin chuckled. Dad, I'm serious. I won't forgive you. I won't forgive Mom, and I won't forgive Su Chingsang. So, you don't have to worry. I'm just not here yet. You don't have to worry. As for Su Chingsang, I really can't touch her for the time being. After all, her man is too powerful. But it doesn't matter. No matter how powerful he is, there's still time, don't you think? Maybe one day, her man will fall from his pedestal, and then I'll have another chance. Don't you think so? Peijin. Su Qinghui felt like a knife was being twisted in his heart. How did you, do you want to ask how I became like this? Su Peijin blinked innocently. I also want to know how I became like this. Speaking of which, you're not the only one who's curious. I'm also curious. Peijin. It's all Dad's fault. Su Qinghui forced himself to stand up and walk to her. He looked at her with a pained expression. Peijin, everything is Dad's fault. I promise you, you're still the daughter of the Su family. Come back to Lin City with me. I promise, we can be like before. Okay? No. Su Peijian shook her head. Dad, it's useless. Me, you, my mother, and Su Qingsang, we can't go back. You should have known since the day you changed our identities. Peijian, okay. Let's not talk about it. I still have something important to do today. So, I won't accompany you. Su Peijian bowed and gave Su Qinghui a very appropriate European court salute. When she got up again, there was only a faint but appropriate smile left on her face. What exactly do you want to do? Who wants to be a good person? Who can take the role? Right now, she just wanted to be a bad person. Su Qingsang, Li Qianxue, Su Qinghui. No matter who it was, she wouldn't forgive them. She looked up at Hui Yifan, her eyes flashing with a hint of gloom. By the way, you helped me make such a big splash today. I have to repay you no matter what, right? What do you want to do now? Hui Yifan looked at Su Peijian and felt that the calculation on her face was too much to his taste. Nothing. I'm just thinking that no matter what, I should let my good sister make a name for herself. After all, no matter what, she is still the young mistress of the Hua family. She is the wife of the president of the Tianyu Group. Don't you think so? Hui Yifan narrowed his eyes and almost instantly understood what Su Peijian meant. The corners of his lips curled up, and there was a hidden meaning in his smile. That's right. The banquet was about to begin. According to the tradition of previous years. As the president of the Tianyu Group, Hua Jinyao had to go on stage to give a speech every year. This year was no exception. At this time, a few elders of the Hua family were standing not far from him. In front of him, in addition to Su Qingsang, there were also a few of his childhood friends, Wan Xianyang, Su Changlong, Tang Mohan, and Qing Xianyan. Tang Monlu and Li Wanyu were also there. However, Tang Monlu was a little embarrassed when she saw Su Qingsang. Li Wanyu didn't. She affectionately hooked her arm around Su Qingsang's arm and talked to her. Su Qingsang chatted with Li Wanyu, but she was a little absent-minded. Su Peijian and Su Qinghui had disappeared for a long time, and they hadn't shown up yet. She wasn't worried that Su Peijian would do anything to her at such a banquet, but she didn't like the feeling of being stared at. On the other side, standing with the elders of the Hua family was Li Qianxue. No matter how much Li Qianxue disliked Lu Tongjia, she still had to give face to the Hua family on such an occasion. Lu Tongjia did the same. The two of them stood together and didn't talk much. The atmosphere was even a little awkward. However, the two of them weren't in a hurry to leave. Instead, they talked from time to time. Li Qianxue was also looking in the direction of the entrance of the banquet. Ever since she knew that Su Peijian insisted on being with Hui Yifan, she knew that this adopted daughter of hers wouldn't be too obedient. She was ambitious and ambitious. She was indeed worried that Su Peijian would do something. She couldn't help but look in Su Qingsang's direction because of her worry. At that moment, Hua Jinyao also walked toward Su Qingsang. He stood in front of her, unable to hide the amazement in his eyes. Today, Su Qingsang looked like someone who had walked out of a painting of a court lady. The light gauze dress made her look elegant and graceful. Her skin was soft as if it were boneless. Thank you for taking the time to attend Tianyu Group's grand event. It has been nearly 50 years since Tianyu Group was established. From my grandfather, Hua Yangping, to me, we have been committed to turning Tianyu Group into an international group. After Hua Jinyao finished speaking, he suddenly changed the topic. Just now, before I went on stage, my assistant asked me, "Why didn't you go on stage to speak in the past, but suddenly this year?" I said, "Because I have something very important to tell everyone today. Please allow me to introduce the lady beside me. She is my wife, Su Qingsang." As Hua Jinyao spoke, he looked at Su Qingsang with a smile, his eyes full of encouragement. She smiled at him and stood in front of the microphone confidently. "Hello, everyone. I'm Su Qingsang. I'm Hua Jinyao's wife. It's very nice to meet you all. I hope that in the future, everyone will continue to support Tianyu Group and Hua Jinyao. Thank you. The applause from the audience continued. The two of them were as dazzling as a golden couple. After the speech, Su Qingsang followed Hua Jinyao off the stage. Wherever the two of them went, many people greeted them and wanted to get to know them. Su Qingsang actually didn't like such occasions, but she was willing to endure it for Hua Jinyao. After Hua Jinyao's speech, it was Hua Mingguang's turn. After these speeches, there would be a performance. This was a program that was arranged every year. This year was no exception. After a popular domestic group sang an opening song on stage, the entire atmosphere began to liven up. After the two songs were over, the next part was supposed to be a magic show. This time, Tianyu Group made the gala very lively. That magician was also very famous in the industry. He kept changing all kinds of tricks on the stage. The audience knew that it was fake, but they were still dazzled. Hua Jinyao had heard Yang Wenchang mention before that the end of the magic show was a trick that changed into a car. That car was this year's special award for the most outstanding employee. However, he didn't expect that in the end, the magic show didn't change into a car. Instead, a white piano appeared. Not only him, but Su Qingsang also saw it. The atmosphere was very lively after just now. The magician stood forward and bowed. Now, I'll perform a special show for everyone. After saying the words special show, the rope that was originally prepared for the magic show was now transformed into a swing and slowly descended from above. Su Peijian sat on it and descended bit by bit. She looked at Su Qingsang from afar, and the corners of her eyes raised into a bright smile. When the swing descended to the ground, she slowly walked down. She walked to the piano, stood still, and bowed. She sat down in front of the piano. She was dressed in red and looked beautiful and sexy. She sat in front of the black and white keys and raised her hands. The melodious sound of the piano rang in every corner of the banquet hall. She was playing the Symphony of Fate. The Symphony of Fate was one of Beethoven's most famous pieces. The first part of his was impassioned. Those who hadn't practiced the piano to a certain level couldn't play it like that. But Su Peijian played it. She was dressed in red, and she used very skilled fingering techniques and was completely engrossed in playing the song to the fullest. The guests present were indeed shocked. The Hua family, including Old Master Hua. Li Qianxue stood in the distance and looked at Su Peijian. She wasn't as engrossed in the sound of Su Peijian's piano as the other guests were. She only had one feeling now. Su Peijian would definitely make a big move next. She subconsciously looked in Su Qingsang's direction. Su Qingsang was also in the stands. Not only her, but also Hua Jinyao. Su Chenghui was also looking at the stage. Everyone's eyes were fixed on that place. Like Li Qianxue, he wasn't in the mood to appreciate Su Peijian's piano. In the past 20 years, he had heard enough. The Su family had a special piano room that belonged to Su Peijian. She had been carefully trained by him and Li Qianxue. They had given Su Peijian the best education and the best resources. In this regard, they indeed owed Su Qingsang. Hua Jinyao also had the same thought. He narrowed his eyes. After the music ended, he saw Su Peijian end the music with an extremely handsome gesture. Finally, she stood up amidst the applause. The applause below the stage was thunderous. Su Peijian bowed to the ground, a faint smile on her lips. Thank you, everyone. Fate is very wonderful. I would like to give this song to you, and at the same time, to my dear sister, Su Qingsang. That's right, I'm Su Qingsang's sister, and also your president Hua's sister-in-law. My name is Su Peijian. Here, I would like to congratulate my sister first. As she spoke, she reached out in Su Qingsang's direction, and the lights of the banquet hall shone on Su Qingsang. Congratulations on marrying Mr. Hua Jinyao, and also on becoming the wife of the president of Tianyu Group. Chapter 589. The applause in the hall became even louder. Hua Jinyao's expression suddenly changed. Both Li Qianxue and Su Qinghui didn't look too good at this time. Everyone knew about this matter, but everyone intentionally ignored it. The impact of Su Qingsang and Su Peijian's identity swap was definitely not only on Su Qingsang's life as an illegitimate daughter for more than 20 years. Most importantly, she had lost all the resources that should have belonged to her. The best education, the best cultivation. Su Peijian was proficient in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. Li Qianxue raised this daughter as a lady from a wealthy family. Playing the piano was just the simplest thing for Su Peijian. Not only could she play the piano, but she could also play the violin and the guzheng. For more than 20 years, she had not only enjoyed the parental love of Su Qinghui and Li Qianxue, but also the cultivation of these top-notch teachers. These were things that Su Qingsang could never make up for. Li Qianxue's heart shook and she almost vomited blood. She moved her toes and was about to walk forward. Su Qinghui blocked in front of her. "Are you satisfied?" Li Qianxue gritted her teeth and looked at Su Qinghui with her eyes wide open. "Su Qinghui, are you satisfied? Is this what you want?" "Qianxue, calm down." Su Qinghui looked around and stepped forward to stand in front of Li Qianxue. "You can't go up now. If things got out of hand, no one would look good." "Su Qinghui. Of course you don't want me to go up." Of course, Li Qianxue knew that at this time, she couldn't go up and blame Su Peijian. If she really did that, things would definitely get worse. Her eyes were red. She lowered her head and almost cried. "Su Qinghui, I hate you." "Qianxue. I'm sorry." An apology was too weak. Su Qinghui turned to look at Su Peijian. He patted Li Qianxue on the shoulder and said, "I'll go." Let him stop Su Peijian's madness and intensity. Li Qianxue glared at him. "You don't understand. You don't understand at all." This battle had to be won by Su Qingsang herself. Today was a good day for Tianyu Group and Hua Jinyao. As the wife of the president of Tianyu Group, no one would care about whether Su Peijian could play the piano or not. They only cared about Su Peijian's letter of challenge. If Su Qingsang didn't play the guqin today, or if she didn't think of a way to defeat Su Peijian to prove herself, she would definitely be embarrassed on such an occasion. "Su Qinghui, I hate you." Li Qianxue was extremely anxious. She was about to go on stage, but she saw that Su Qingsang, who had been standing there without moving, finally moved. Hua Jinyao knew from the moment Su Peijian threw out the challenge letter that Su Peijian didn't come with good intentions, but he didn't expect that Su Peijian would ask Su Qingsang to play the guqin. As far as he knew, Su Qingsang had no chance to learn these things. "Qingsang?" Hua Jinyao's expression was solemn. He reached out to hold Su Qingsang's hand. Su Peijian was really tired of living. She wanted Su Qingsang to play the guqin. He moved his toes and was about to step onto the stage. Su Qingsang glanced at him and shook her head. What Li Qianxue could think of, Su Qingsang could also think of. Today's battle must be fought by herself. "Qingsang? I'm fine." Su Qingsang smiled at Hua Jinyao and said in a very low voice, "If I embarrass you later, you can't despise me." "I'll never despise you." Hua Jinyao looked at her with a fervent gaze. Su Qingsang smiled. That smile was a little satisfied and nostalgic. She leaned forward and kissed Hua Jinyao. Hua Jinyao heard her say in a very low voice, "I need some energy, that's all." After kissing him, she smiled and went onto the stage, step by step, in Su Peijian's direction. The applause in the banquet hall became even louder. Even old Master Hua started clapping. Su Peijian stood on the stage, and the applause stopped for a moment. Su Peijian stood in front of the piano, a white piano, and a red dress. The scene was really pleasing to the eye. Su Qingsang and Su Peijian both had their own characteristics. Su Peijian was delicate, and Su Qingsang was elegant. Sister. Please. Su Peijian smiled faintly and raised her hand gently. She motioned for Su Qingsang to sit down beside her. Su Qingsang glanced at her and was in no hurry to sit down. Instead, she picked up the microphone in the middle. She walked to stand in front of Su Peijian and looked down at the audience. My sister started practicing the piano when she was 4 years old. Isn't she very good at it? Yes. Not only did the audience respond, but there was also applause. My sister has already played such a beautiful piano. I think even if I played with her, I probably wouldn't be able to amaze you guys. Su Qingsang said half jokingly and half seriously. There was a burst of laughter from the audience. She stood there, natural and unrestrained. The golden dress made her look elegant and extraordinary. There was a bright smile in her eyes, as dazzling as the stars. Hua Jinyao looked at Su Qingsang with admiration and amazement in his eyes, which were as deep as the sea. As Su Qingsang spoke, she held Su Peijian's hand and said, "So I thought, why don't I sing a song for you guys? My sister will play the piano, and I'll sing. What do you think?" Okay. The audience was even louder than before. Su Qingsang looked at Su Peijian and said, "Sister, let's sing a legendary song together. I hope that Tianyu group will become a legend." She looked at Su Peijian with a calm expression and a calm gaze. Su Peijian's hand, which was on the piano, had to restrain itself from clenching into a fist. Sister's legendary song should be better than the Symphony of Fate, right? She didn't move, so Su Qingsang joked again. There was faint laughter from the audience. Su Qingsang turned around and looked at the crowd. Can you give my sister a round of applause? Thank you, everyone. There was applause from the audience. Su Peijian's smile froze for a moment, but she could only sit down with a smile. Su Qingsang nodded slightly. Even if Su Peijian was unwilling, she had no choice but to start playing the very famous legend. Just because I saw you one more time in the crowd, I couldn't forget your face. I dreamed that I could meet you again one day, and from then on, I began to miss you alone. As soon as she spoke, everyone present was shocked. Even Hua Jinyao and the others had heard Su Qingsang sing before. But the feeling she gave them at that time wasn't as shocking as it was now. Su Qingsang's voice wasn't very crisp, but it was very pleasant to listen to. At this moment, she lowered her voice by an octave, and it sounded ethereal and beautiful. Her singing was not inferior to that of a diva. She stood there, accompanied by the soft sound of the piano. On the stage, one red and one gold, 2 figures, one moving and one still, formed a beautiful scene with the white piano. It wasn't that Su Peijian hadn't thought of playing bad things, such as playing faster or higher. However, Su Qingsang seemed to know what she was planning. Every time she wanted to do something, Su Qingsang would stand in front of the piano and sing to her with one hand on her shoulder. She had originally wanted to make things difficult for Su Qingsang, but she ended up becoming her accompaniment. Su Peijian only felt a mouthful of blood choking in her throat, and she almost spat it out. This song didn't have any more intense ups and downs. It was just sung softly, with thousands of twists and turns. Everyone in the banquet hall was intoxicated. Su Qingsang's voice, the confidence that she revealed at this moment, and the feeling that she gave people when she moved. Even if her facial features weren't as bright and beautiful as Su Peijian's, after this scene, she had already suppressed her limelight. Su Peijian was angry, but Su Qingsang was getting better and better as she sang. I'd rather spend this life waiting for you to realize that I've always been by your side and never left. After singing the last sentence perfectly, Su Qingsang pulled the microphone away from her. It was like a scene from a concert, and it sounded like a lingering aftertaste. Su Qingsang lowered her eyelashes slightly and held the microphone in her hand. She just stood there like that, and it was also a scenery. Su Peijian, who was at the back, had become her foil. And everyone remembered Su Qingsang. He remembered this legend of hers. The symphony of fate that had shocked them before seemed to be not worth mentioning at this moment. The piano stopped, but there was still a lingering sound. However, if an expert were to listen at this moment, he would definitely hear that Su Peijian's final ending was far less elegant than when she played Fate just now. She stood up and walked forward, intending to take over the microphone and regain her home field position. But how could Su Qingsang let her do as she wished? She reached out and grabbed Su Peijian's hand. With a little force, the two of them faced the audience together. Su Qingsang had a smile on her face. Even if her facial features weren't as bright and beautiful as Su Peijian's, she was still shining brightly at this moment. The light shone on her at this moment, making her look a little ethereal. She held Su Peijian's hand tightly, not giving her a chance to take the microphone away from her hand. She moved her toes forward a little. It was only a distance of half a step, but it made her the main character, and Su Peijian the supporting character. Thank you, everyone, and thank my sister for accompanying me with this song Legend. I hope that our Tianyu group will become a legend in Rong City. It will also become a legend in the world. Her voice was very soft and ethereal. After singing just now, her voice was even more impressive than when she introduced herself. And that accompaniment made Su Peijian so angry that the smile on her face couldn't be suppressed. However, the light shone on her face, and she couldn't even flare up now. Now, let's give up our position to the performers at the back. Otherwise, I think they might complain later that I'm stealing their jobs. Ha 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 ha. There was another burst of laughter and applause from the audience. Su Qingsang held Su Peijian's hand gracefully, bowed forward, and left the stage perfectly. Su Peijian's face was stiff. She forced herself not to show her fear and not to be angry, but how could she not be angry? All the smile on her face couldn't be suppressed after she left the stage. Chapter 590. Li Qianxue had been worried. She was scared when she saw Su Qingsang go on stage. She had never been so scared before. She was afraid that Su Qingsang would lose to Su Peijian. She was afraid that Su Qingsang would be at a disadvantage. She regretted countless times. She regretted not being more magnanimous and tolerant. If she had trained Su Qingsang according to Su Peijian's standards, Su Qingsang would definitely be more outstanding today. Until she saw Su Qingsang's performance, until she heard her daughter speak. Her heart had been hanging in the air. In the end, Su Qingsang left the stage. Her heart, which was worried about Su Qingsang, seemed to finally be at ease. Her back was covered in a layer of sweat. After Su Qingsang's performance, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. Su Qinghui stood beside her. He had been paying attention to Li Qianxue and Su Qingsang. He was also amazed by Su Qingsang's performance. He had never seen a daughter like this. Seeing that Li Qianxue's body relaxed after Su Qingsang's performance, he reached out to help her. Li Qianxue waved his hand away without thinking. She turned to face him and stood still, her eyes cold. Su Qinghui. She had so many things she wanted to say and so many emotions she wanted to vent. But now, she couldn't say anything other than Su Qinghui's name. She didn't need to say anything. Su Qinghui understood. Ignoring her resistance, he held her in his arms. He gently patted her back. Li Qianxue's body tensed up. At first, she wanted to break free, but the occasion wasn't right. She thought of Su Qingsang and Su Peijian. The emotions in her heart were in a mess. She couldn't help but grab the front of Su Qinghui's shirt tightly. Her trembling voice was filled with suppressed emotions. Su Qinghui, you owe her. You owe her for the rest of your life. Su Peijian shook Su Qingsang's hand off. If it weren't for her last shred of dignity, she might have lost her temper on the spot. After shaking Su Qingsang's hand off, she realized that something was wrong. She grabbed Su Qingsang's hand and led her to a corner. She took a step forward and stood in front of her. She looked at Su Qingsang with fire in her eyes and a low voice full of sharpness. Su Qingsang, are you very proud now? Are you proud of yourself? Su Qingsang looked at her exasperated face and chuckled. I'm quite proud of myself. After all, it would be hard for me not to be proud of having Miss Su as my accompaniment. Don't you agree? Her smile was faint and her expression was magnanimous. No matter who saw her now, they would not think about how nervous she was before she went on stage. Speaking of which, Su Qingsang really didn't have any outstanding talents. She grew up with the identity of an illegitimate daughter. The Su family being willing to give her a mouthful of food was already a gift. How could they let her go to those things? Moreover, she wasn't interested in that. Therefore, compared to Su Peijian, she really didn't have any talent to show. Her voice was not bad, but she had never wanted to sing. To be able to sing a legend like this, he had to thank his medical school days. Every year at the medical school's gala, there would be people who would perform on stage. Su Qingsang was never a person who liked to be in the limelight. However, the year she was about to graduate, the class monitor misheard and reported her name. When she found out, it was too late. She wanted to say that she didn't want to perform, but the program had already been reported to the school. Su Qingsang had no choice but to bite the bullet. She was a person who pursued perfection. Since she had decided to go on stage, she had to perform well. For that time on stage, she practiced for a long time. She learned how to pronounce, how to speak, and how to turn. Fortunately, it hadn't been too long since she graduated. Her voice could still be heard. The calmer she was, the angrier Su Peijian became. Su Qingsang, don't go too far. How did she go too far? She was the one who provoked her first. How did she become the one who went too far? My woman, so what if I go too far? The voice that suddenly sounded was a bit cold. Hua Jinmiao had come out of nowhere. He stood in front of Su Qingsang, put his big hand on her shoulder, and looked at Su Peijian with sharp eyes. Su Peijian's body trembled under Hua Jinmiao's stare, and her momentum suddenly weakened. Hua Jinmiao curled the corner of his lips. His tall figure created a great sense of oppression at this moment. So what if my woman goes too far? Su Peijian gritted her teeth. At this point, what could she do? Su Qingsang looked at Hua Jinmiao. Her heart warmed. Actually, she wouldn't be at a disadvantage. But she liked Hua Jinmiao's protective look. President Hua, this is between me and Qingsang. It has nothing to do with you. Qingsang is my wife. Do you think it has anything to do with me? Just as Su Peijian was about to vomit blood, another voice sounded. It's so lively here. Hui Yifan had come out of nowhere. He stood next to Su Peijian. His gaze swept over Hua Jinmiao and Hui Yifan, and he smiled. Big brother, what are you doing? No matter what, Peijian is your future sister-in-law. Don't scare her on my behalf. He also put his hand on Su Peijian's shoulder. His intention to protect her was quite obvious. Hua Jinmiao's gaze swept over his hand, and finally returned to Hui Yifan's face. Their eyes met, and for some reason, there was a strange surge of pressure in the air. You also said that she is future. Since it is future, let's wait until she marries into the family. The corners of Hua Jinmiao's lips curled up slightly, and there was a hint of mockery in his expression. Su Peijian felt more and more anxious. What did Hua Jinmiao mean? Big brother, it's really interesting to talk like this. Don't worry. I will definitely make Peijian your sister-in-law. Then we can wait and see. Hua Jinmiao put his arm around Su Peijian's waist, glanced at Hui Yifan and Hui Yifan's faces, turned around, and left. Su Peijian was so angry that her teeth itched. She was really uncomfortable. She waved Hui Yifan's hand away. Enough. Okay, baby, don't be angry. Hui Yifan held her hand. It's never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. Don't be anxious. How could she not be anxious? She glared at Hui Yifan hatefully. You'd better pray that the signing of the contract will go smoothly in 2 days, or else, okay. Hui Yifan put her in his arms again. Don't be angry. Trust me, it will go smoothly. Su Peijian walked beside Hui Jinyao, and she suddenly laughed out loud. Her laughter was very low. Hui Jinyao turned his face to look at her. What are you laughing at? Nothing. Su Peijian glanced at him. I think Su Peijian's reaction just now was quite funny. Hui Jinyao twitched the corner of his mouth. She probably didn't expect that you would turn her into a joke when she wanted to see you make a fool of yourself. Su Peijian laughed, stuck out her tongue, and said playfully, it's not a joke, but she didn't get what she wanted, so she's probably very angry. Hui Jinyao smiled as well. He kissed her gently on the cheek and said, you sang so well just now. Why didn't I notice it before? When you went to play with us, you held back, didn't you? Yes. Su Peijian's eyes curved. I always have to hold back. Well done. Hui Jinyao looked at her slightly open lips and couldn't help but kiss them. I like it. Su Peijian's face was a little red. From the corner of her eye, she saw Su Peijian and Hui Yifan turn around and leave, and the smile on her face faded a little. She actually didn't want to have a bad relationship with Su Peijian. From Su Peijian's point of view, she had lost everything. It was understandable that she would have emotional dissatisfaction. If Su Peijian didn't do anything and just let it go, then she was willing to let it go. If Su Peijian didn't want to stop and would make more moves, then she had no choice but to do it. Su Peijian didn't wait for the banquet to end and wanted to leave early. However, she couldn't leave because Old Master Hua was looking for her. Old Master Hua didn't know that Su Peijian didn't know how to play the guqin, so he thought that the two sisters' performance just now was a temporary surprise. Naturally, he knew that Su Peijian was multi-talented. For a moment, he didn't realize Su Peijian's original intention. Peijian. You gave a good surprise today. Did you tell that last Qing sang long ago? Yes. Su Peijian smiled brightly, but only she knew how unwilling she was in her heart. I wanted to play the four-hand duet with my sister, but she said that it would take longer to practice. This is the best. Good. Old Master Hua said the word good 3 times. He looked at Su Chenghui and Li Qianxue in the distance. Ask your father to come over later to discuss your marriage with Yifan. Old Master Hua thought that Su Peijian and Hui Jinyao hadn't held a wedding in Rong City yet. Now that Su Peijian was going to be with Hui Yifan, the wedding must be held in a lively manner. Su Peijian's face was really a little stiff now. Discuss her marriage with Su Chenghui? Li Qianxue was in a bad mood. She was also the one who wanted to leave early. However, she couldn't. Not only was she not in a hurry to leave, but she also stood aside when someone came up to say hello and knew that Su Chenghui was Su Peijian's father. President Su is amazing. Both of his daughters are so outstanding. It's really gratifying that they can both marry into the Hua family. That's right. President Su's daughter is better than so many outstanding daughters in Rong City. He's really good at teaching. Su Chenghui didn't want to hear those praises. However, he had to listen to them. Not only him, but also Li Qianxue. Others wouldn't know that they were divorced, let alone that Su Peijian and Su Qingsang had the same father but different mothers. Li Qianxue stood beside Su Chenghui. After the crowd dispersed, she glanced at Su Chenghui coldly. This is the last time. She didn't say what the last time was. She walked towards Su Qingsang, intending to leave first. Su Chenghui watched her figure disappear into the distance and sighed silently in his heart. He had thought that it was a chance to get close to Li Qianxue and repair their relationship. However, he didn't expect that not only did he not get what he wanted, but it also made their relationship even worse. Looking in Su Peijian's direction, Su Qinghui knew that it would be even more difficult for Li Qianxue to forgive him. Before he could recover from that emotion, Old Master Hua had already asked Hua Yifan to invite him. Old Master Hua was a powerful person. After entertaining for most of the day, he was sitting on the sofa in the banquet hall to rest. Hua Yangyuan and Hua Yangxiu sat beside him. In addition to them, there was also Hua Yifan and Su Peijian. There was also Hua Mingliang, Nian Chunya and her husband, Hua Yiyang, and Hua Manzi. Su Qinghui didn't see Hua Jinyao and Su Qingsang, so he greeted everyone present. Finally, he sat down on the sofa opposite Old Master Hua. "Nephew, where's niece?" "She's not feeling well. She went back to the hotel to rest." Old Master Hua nodded. He understood the real relationship between Li Qianxue and Su Peijian, so he didn't ask anymore. "Nephew, I've already said it once. Now I'll say it again, and I'll also ask for your opinion." As Old Master Hua spoke, he glanced in the direction of Hua Yifan and Su Peijian. The two of them were sitting together, holding hands, looking very loving. "Let's discuss Peijian and Yifan's marriage." Su Qinghui had prepared before he came, but he didn't expect Old Master Hua to be so anxious. "What I mean? Get engaged first, then get married." It was a lively and bustling event. "As for how much betrothal gift you want and what other requirements, just mention it. I mean a wedding in Rome City. As for whether to do it in Lin City, we'll also ask for your opinion. If you need to do it, we can also cooperate." He married both of his daughters to the Hua family. Hua Jinyao's previous matter with Su Qingsang had become a foregone conclusion. Old Master Hua definitely wanted this second wedding to be a grand one. "I think that's good too." Hua Yangyuan also said at this time, "One in Rome City, one in Lin City. Our Hua family can't be too casual in marrying a daughter-in-law." Su Peijian leaned her face against Hua Yifan's chest, and the anger in her heart before. Finally, it was a lot smoother. Su Qinghui sat there for a long time without moving. In front of him was an elder of the Hua family, and opposite him was Old Master Hua's smiling eyes. He turned to look at Su Peijian and saw the smile in her eyes. He pursed his lips and spoke softly under Su Peijian's smiling face. "Sorry, I don't agree to this marriage." The air seemed to suddenly become silent. Everyone in the Hua family looked at Su Qinghui, as if they didn't understand why he meant this. "Nephew, you must be joking, right?" "I'm not joking." Su Qinghui faced Old Master Hua with a fearless expression. "I really don't agree." "Well?" Old Master Hua looked at the other people present, then looked at Su Peijian, and finally seemed to be a little confused. "Nephew, do you have any dissatisfaction with Yifan? Or?" "Neither." Su Peijian's face turned pale. She never expected Su Qinghui to do such a thing. "Then what are you doing?" "Old Master, I think it's better for me to tell you something first." Su Qinghui's voice was indifferent. "You should know that although Peijian is my daughter, she can't be considered the eldest daughter of the Su family." At this point, Su Peijian's face was already quite ugly. She almost couldn't help but lose her temper. Hua Yifan squeezed her hand tightly and gave her a disapproving look. Su Qinghui acted as if he didn't see Su Peijian's change of expression. "Peijian is my daughter, but she is an illegitimate daughter." She almost couldn't help but lose her temper. Hua Yifan squeezed her hand tightly and gave her a disapproving look. Except for Old Master Hua, everyone's expression changed. Nian Chunya had known it for a long time, but when she heard Su Qinghui say it out loud, her expression became even more interesting. She's illegitimate. Now, it had nothing to do with the Li family in Lin City. "I don't think she's good enough for Dad." Su Peijian had been upset the whole night. She had been suppressing her emotions. This time, she didn't want to suppress it anymore. "Do you have to be like this? I just wanted to make it clear to my in-laws in advance." Su Qinghui looked calm. He looked at Su Peijian, and his usually elegant face was filled with determination. I've taught you that a gentleman does not lie in the dark. I've made mistakes before, so I don't want you to make them again. Your status doesn't match Hui Yifan's. Dad. Su Peijian gritted her teeth and clenched her fists. Old Master Hua looked at the father and daughter and cleared his throat to smooth things over. Nephew, you don't have to say that. I already know Peijian's identity. The Hua family doesn't mind. We didn't object to Su Qingsang's marriage with Jinyao. Old Master, I know you're a good person. Su Qinghui's attitude didn't change. After what happened before, he knew very well that Su Peijian wanted to marry into the Hua family because she didn't get along with Su Qingsang. How sincere could she be towards Hui Yifan? A marriage without feelings wouldn't be happy. Su Peijian was now possessed. In order to make Su Qingsang unhappy, she didn't mind putting herself in danger. But there are some things I want to make clear to you first. For example, Peijian's identity and the gap between her and Hui Yifan. I've made these clear. I know that nephew is magnanimous. However, these are all small matters. You don't have to be so agitated, don't you think? Anyway, I won't agree. Su Qinghui's attitude was firm. Su Peijian was furious. She sat there and felt as if she had been stripped naked. Embarrassment, shame, and all kinds of emotions surged, making her face turn red. Dad, I'm already an adult. I don't need your permission to do anything. She was going to marry into the Hua family. Yes, you're old enough to have your own opinions. So, you don't need my permission to do anything. Su Qinghui nodded and didn't refute her words. I'm just explaining my attitude. As for what you plan to do, that's your business. He stood up and glanced at Old Master Hua. Old Master, I have reservations about this marriage, but I've already said it first. However, I've already said this first. If you still want Peijian to enter the Hua family, then do as you please. You don't have to inform me to attend the wedding. Su Peijian's face turned from red to white. She didn't expect Su Qinghui to be so decisive. She stood up and stood in front of Su Qinghui when he was about to leave. Dad, I thought I was still your daughter. Yes. I also thought you were still my daughter. Su Qinghui knew what she meant, but he believed that she also knew what he meant. I thought you didn't see yourself as my daughter anymore. If Su Peijian hadn't deliberately made things difficult for Su Qingsang just now, Su Qinghui wouldn't have such an attitude now. However, he was very clear about Su Peijian's actions just now. She had such an attitude even before marrying into the Hua family. If he really let her marry into the Hua family and have more contact with Su Qingsang, what would she do? Or perhaps she had already made a move without him knowing? Su Qinghui didn't want to think so badly of Su Peijian, but now he had to think about it. Dad. Su Peijian took a step forward. She lowered her voice and pleaded. That was her last glimmer of hope for Su Qinghui. Today is a good day. You can disagree with me marrying Hui Yifan, but you're my father. Are you sure you really want to do this? Yes, are you sure? Su Qinghui's usually gentle black eyes were now filled with disapproval. Are you sure you've thought it through and want to marry Hui Yifan? Are you sure you love him? Are you sure? He looked at her with a sharp gaze. It was as if he could see into her heart. Before Su Peijian could answer, Hui Yifan stood up first. He held Su Peijian's shoulder. Uncle, of course Peijian and I have real feelings for each other. I've been dating Peijian for a few months. Although I can't say that we understand each other 100%, sometimes when we meet the right person, we can't help but want to settle down with them. But sometimes, when we meet the right person, we can't help but want to settle down with them. Since Peijian and I have decided, we will naturally get along well. In the future, we will slowly deepen our understanding and get to know each other better. We will let our feelings for each other further. These words were very pleasant to hear, but unfortunately, he was facing Su Qinghui. Is that so? In that case, I wish you all the best. But I still maintain my attitude. I don't support your marriage, but I won't interfere or stop it. That's all. I just hope that you won't regret it. He didn't believe that with Hui Yifan's shrewdness, he couldn't see that Su Peijian had ulterior motives in Yao Jiajing and the Hua family. But why could Hui Yifan still accept it? It meant that Hui Yifan's motives were not pure. Hua Jinyao was the president, and Hui Yifan was the vice president. There was a huge difference in the word vice. Everyone had ambitions. With an outstanding brother like Hua Jinyao above them, Hui Yifan probably had his own thoughts. Su Qinghui could even conclude that Hui Yifan and Su Peijian had some business dealings. Uncle, what are you talking about? Of course I won't regret it. After all, I have real feelings for Peijian. Su Peijian didn't say anything. She didn't want to say anything anymore. She just looked at Su Qinghui. Now she hated him as well. She would remember the humiliation these people had given her today. Whether it was Su Qingsang or Su Qinghui. One by one, she would never forget all the things that had been done to her. She hid her emotions very well. In the eyes of others, she was delicate and pitiful. She didn't get her father's blessing and she felt very wronged. Only Su Qinghui, who had feelings for her for more than 20 years, didn't miss the flash of hatred in Su Peijian's eyes. His feelings became more and more complicated. Peijian, since you won't regret it, then you don't need my permission. Anyway, you're on your own. Old Master. Su Qinghui bowed in the direction of Old Master Hua. Qingsang's mother isn't feeling well. I'll go see her. Excuse me. Chapter 591. Su Peijian stood there. After Su Qinghui left, she finally couldn't help it. Grandpa Hua, I'm not feeling well. I'll go back and rest first. After saying this with all her remaining grace, she quickly left. Hui Yifan hurriedly said goodbye to Old Master Hua and quickly chased after her. Old Master Hua sat there, not understanding how things had turned out like this. It seemed that at this moment, he finally realized that something was wrong. Brother, what do you think? Hui Yangyuan and Hui Yangxiu both looked at Old Master Hua. Old Master Hua waved his hand. I was too impatient. Forget it, let's not talk about this for now. Yes, yes. Nian Shunya interrupted, in my opinion, there are many good girls in Rong City. It's not worth arguing with them. Old Master Hua glanced at him, his eyes a little cold. Nian Shunya was momentarily embarrassed and didn't speak anymore. Not long after Su Qingsang sent Li Qianxue away, she found that Su Qinghui was also leaving. Dad. You're leaving now? Su Qinghui looked at Su Qingsang with a complicated expression. He had just heard another daughter's heart. But even so, he did feel guilty toward Su Qingsang. Qingsang, I've booked a plane ticket back to Lin City tomorrow. Your mother probably won't stay in Rong City for long. You have to take good care of yourself. Dad? Qingsang, what happened in the past was all my fault. I'm the one who let you down. When he scolded Su Peijian, did he have the right to do the same? A gentleman doesn't bully a dark room. He had a guilty conscience, and now he had to bear the consequences. He didn't want to see the sisters become enemies, but he couldn't stop it. Dad. It's all over. It's all over. Su Qinghui didn't know how to tell her. He looked at Su Qingsang and suddenly reached out to hug her. Qingsang, don't hurt yourself. Don't let others hurt you. If someone bullies you, you can tell me. I'll definitely stand up for you. Su Qingsang was caught off guard by Su Qinghui and was completely stunned. She didn't know how to react for a moment, so she just stood there in a daze. Su Qinghui patted her on the back. After thinking for a long time, he said, "Be careful of Peijian." He didn't finish his sentence, but he believed that Su Qingsang would understand. Judging from Su Qingsang's performance today, she wasn't the kind of person who would be bullied by others, so he was more or less relieved. She looked behind her and saw that Hua Jinyao had appeared out of nowhere and was standing behind Su Qingsang. Su Qinghui gave him a look that both of them could understand. Hua Jinyao nodded. Su Qinghui let go of her and looked at Su Qingsang with guilt in his eyes. In the corridor, the cold wind from the air conditioner made their arms feel a little cold. After Su Qinghui left, Su Qingsang couldn't help but glance at Hua Jinyao. What happened to my father? Hua Jinyao glanced at Su Qingsang and told her the latest news. Your father rejected Grandpa's proposal. He was against Su Peijian marrying into the Hua family. What? It was Su Qingsang's turn to be shocked. Hua Jinyao wasn't the only one who got the news. Lu Tongjia felt a little suffocated. Compared with old Master Hua's misunderstanding, she knew Su Peijian's true intentions better. She wanted to make things difficult for Su Qingsang and see Su Qingsang make a fool of herself. On the one hand, she was afraid that Su Qingsang would really make a fool of herself and embarrass the Hua family. On the other hand, she hated Su Peijian for not knowing what to do. She messed around on such an important occasion. No one else knew about it. In the end, Su Qingsang handled it perfectly. She should feel relieved, but she felt uncomfortable again. The better Su Qingsang behaved, the more uncomfortable she felt. Because she always thought of Su Qingsang hugging Zhang Yichen. That feeling made Lu Tongjia feel as if there was a fishbone stuck in her throat. It was really uncomfortable. What's wrong? Hua Mingguang noticed that Lu Tongjia didn't look good. Are you not feeling well? No. Lu Tongjia shook her head. She thought of something else. Su Qinghui is sensible. He knows that his daughter is an illegitimate daughter and doesn't deserve the Hua family, so he came to stop it. But isn't this a slap in the face? Su Peijian was an illegitimate daughter and didn't deserve Hua Yifan. But wasn't Su Qingsang also an illegitimate daughter? She married Hua Jinyao. What did that mean? Could it be that in Su Qinghui's heart, her son couldn't be compared to Hua Yifan? Hua Mingguang was a shrewd businessman. Thinking of something, he shook his head. I think you're thinking too much. There might be an inside story. What inside story? Lu Tongjia was already in a bad mood. That made her even more uncomfortable. What's wrong with my son? He doesn't want his illegitimate daughter to marry Hua Yifan, but he wants his illegitimate daughter to marry Jinyao? Is he looking down on people? Hua Mingguang was stunned for a moment and glanced at Lu Tongjia. Are you feeling sorry for Jinyao? This was a rare occurrence. How many years had it been? Who wants to feel sorry for him? Lu Tongjia didn't want to admit that her mood had been affected. I just can't bear to see his family have such double standards. Really? Hua Mingguang's voice was full of understanding. He had been married to Lu Tongjia for many years. How could he not know what she was thinking at this time? She could dislike her child, but she couldn't let others dislike him. Tell Jinyao later that this place is close to the old house. Let him live at home. I don't want to. If you want to tell him, you do it. Lu Tongjia didn't respond. She saw Su Qingsang and Hua Jinyao standing hand in hand from afar. They seemed to be very intimate, and she felt a little upset. Su Peijian wasn't good enough for Hua Yifan. Could Su Qingsang be good enough for Hua Jinyao? Thinking of this, Lu Tongjia's voice became colder. He wants to go home anyway. With a wife, parents are nothing. Hua Mingguang was stunned for a moment, then suddenly laughed again. His wife was good at everything, but she was soft-hearted. Forget it, let him do it. Su Qingsang looked at Li Qianxue, her eyes full of reluctance. Mom, can't you stay for a few more days? 2 days had passed since the anniversary celebration, and Li Qianxue had been with Su Qingsang for 2 days. She had booked a ticket for today, and it would be flying in half an hour. I want to, but I have something to do at the company. I have to go back. Li Qianxue raised her hand and stroked Su Qingsang's cheek. Her eyes were a little emotional. Well, it's only 2 hours from Lin City to Rome City. I'll come to see you next time. You can also go back to Lin City. Okay. After Yusun's college entrance examination, you can come back and stay for a few days. The three of us will find a place to go out and play. Okay. Su Qingsang nodded. Her eyes were already red. Li Qianxue looked at her, wanting to say something but hesitating. She wanted to ask Su Qingsang why she wanted to see Xiang Kaiping several times, but in the end, she remained silent. Just as she had said to Su Peijian, it was a good thing that Su Qingsang valued relationships. Although she didn't like her contacting Xiang Kaiping or seeing Xiang Kaiping. Qingsang, if Peijian bullies you, you have to tell me. Mom, you're thinking too much. How can she bully me? Su Qingsang thought of what happened at the anniversary celebration. Hua Jinyao told her everything. There was obvious worry in Li Qianshue's eyes. She only realized that Su Qingsang was kind and magnanimous after she recognized her daughter. Su Peijian might not be bad by nature, but now she had gone astray. She was afraid that she was no longer the daughter she used to be. Okay, don't see me out. I'm going in. Li Qianxue was about to walk to the VIP passage when Su Qingsang suddenly stopped her. Mom. Yes? My dad. Seeing that Li Qianxue frowned when she heard Su Qinghui's name, Su Qingsang cleared her throat. Mom. Let me tell you something. She told Li Qianxue what Su Qinghui did that day. Su Qingsang looked at her with some caution. Dad. He's doing this to protect me. And you know, Su Peijian cares about her reputation the most. Now that she was slapped in the face by my dad, she must have suffered a great blow. So. You don't have to say good things about him. Li Qianxue didn't accept Su Qinghui's kindness at all. These things were done by him. If it weren't for him, these things wouldn't have happened today. No matter how much he does for you, it's what he should do. Mom, okay. Don't talk about him. I don't want to hear his name. Su Qingsang didn't say anything. Li Qianxue turned and walked straight to the VIP passage. When her back was facing Su Qingsang, her face wasn't as calm as she appeared to be. Su Qinghui, what was he up to this time? Su Peijian marrying Hua Yifan was far more beneficial than harmful to Su Qinghui. Moreover, Su Peijian was his beloved daughter. But now, he was giving her up just like that? Heh. Men. Su Qinghui treated his own daughter like this. How could he treat her with sincerity? Su Qinghui had no idea at all. He wanted to make up for it, but he did it out of guilt, which caused Li Qianxue to misunderstand again. This made it even more difficult for him to pursue his wife in the future. After sending Li Qianxue away, no matter how reluctant Su Qingsang was, she had to let her life go back to normal. Because Su Qinghui came to Rome City, Su Qingsang went to see Xiang Kaiping again. She didn't mean anything else. She just wanted to test if Su Qinghui really didn't have feelings for Xiang Kaiping. If Su Qinghui came to see Xiang Kaiping, then she swore that no matter what Su Qinghui did in the future, she would never say a word for him in front of Li Qianxue. However, the result of the test made her more or less relieved. Xiang Kaiping was also very resistant to Su Qinghui and couldn't bear to hear her mention his name. That was good. It showed that Su Qinghui still had some sincerity for Li Qianxue. In fact, no matter who Su Qinghui was with, Su Qingsang planned to help no one and do nothing. But she still hoped that Su Qinghui could really think clearly about who he loved. Putting these things behind her, Su Qingsang resumed her life in the hospital, at home, and at the Hua family's old house. However, she didn't expect that she would soon be busy again. Old Master Hua sat in the study. He looked at Hua Jinyao sitting opposite him. It had been a week since the anniversary. Su Peijian and Hua Yifan's marriage didn't continue, as if it had been delayed. He returned to the Hua family's mansion on the weekend and still brought Su Peijian over. Old Master Hua was still polite on the surface, but he didn't mention her marriage to Hua Yifan again. Su Peijian was secretly resentful. She, who was holding back her anger, and she and Hua Yifan got the contract that they had been negotiating with the company they had privately opened. Hua Jinyao had been waiting for Su Peijian and Hua Yifan to sign the contract. As soon as Hua Yifan signed the contract, he came to see Old Master Hua with the contract. Jinyao, you came at the right time today. I happen to have something to talk to you about. Old Master Hua saw the document bag in Hua Jinyao's hand just now. What do you think about Su Peijian and Yifan's marriage? Su Chenghui said that day. Old Master Hua had lived to such an old age and had experienced many things. He could understand some things just by thinking about it. That was also the reason why he was indifferent to Su Peijian that day. It doesn't matter what I think. What matters is, Grandpa, don't you have an answer? Hearing Hua Jinyao's words, Old Master Hua suddenly smiled. You. Grandpa, I'm here today for another matter. Hua Jinyao opened the document bag in his hand, took out all the documents inside, and placed them in front of Old Master Hua one by one. Not only was there the contract that Hua Yifan had just signed with the company, but there was also all the investigation information. Old Master Hua picked it up and glanced at it briefly. His expression immediately changed. By the time he finished reading all the documents, the expression on his face was quite ugly. He kept panting heavily, and his face swelled to a purplish red. Hua Jinyao quickly stood up and went forward to pat his chest. Grandpa, don't be angry. If you are like this, I'm afraid I won't be able to tell you what will happen next. Old Master Hua patted his chest and kept calming down. When he calmed down, he looked at Hua Jinyao. You knew it long ago, didn't you? Yes. Hua Jinyao looked calm. I knew it a long time ago. I knew it the moment Su Peijian planned to marry into the Hua family. Good, very good. Old Master Hua's hands were trembling. You knew it a long time ago, but you didn't tell me? Hua Jinyao's expression didn't change. Grandpa, you should be glad that I only came to tell you, and not to directly hand this over to the board of directors. Although the Hua family held the largest share of the Tianyu group, it wasn't that there were no other shareholders. If this evidence was handed over to the company, Hua Yifan would probably be in trouble. This unfilial son. Unfilial son, Old Master Hua cursed several times in a row. When he calmed down, he patted his chest and looked at Hua Jinyao. Tell me, what else do you think I don't know? Hua Jinyao let go of his hand and returned to his seat. Grandpa, you already know about Qing Sang and Su Peijian's background. I admit that Su Peijian is extremely capable and resourceful. However, she is too scheming, and there is a grudge between her and Qing Sang. It's impossible for her to get along with Qing Sang. What do you mean? Are you saying that she has occupied Qing Sang's identity for so many years, and she still doesn't think it's enough? Grandpa, from our perspective, we would say that Su Peijian has occupied Qing Sang's identity for more than 20 years. But from Su Peijian's perspective, she wouldn't think that way. She would only think about it. Why was it that she couldn't be a proper young miss anymore and became an illegitimate daughter? In her heart, she wouldn't think about what she had before. She would only think about what she had lost now. And Qing Sang was the culprit who caused her to lose everything. Old Master Hua's face was cold and he didn't say anything. Hua Jinyao sighed. She has resentment and anger in her heart. He had to vent his anger eventually. To her, marrying Yifan is just a springboard. In fact, you might not know what happened that day. Qing Sang doesn't know how to play the piano at all, so why did Su Peijian let her go on stage? Old Master Hua was a smart person. What else did he not understand? You mean, she wants to marry into the Hua family and then find an opportunity to deal with Qing Sang? Yes. Although I'm not sure what she plans to do, I'm sure that she has an ulterior motive. Old Master Hua didn't say anything else. Some things, once exposed, were no longer the same. Then you mean, Grandpa, I'm not an intolerant person, But some things are my bottom line. You want me to stop Yifan and Su Peijian's marriage? Old Master Hua didn't want Su Peijian to be with Hua Yifan anymore. No. Hua Jinyao shook his head. I don't want you to stop it. In fact, it doesn't matter to us whether Su Peijian marries Hua Yifan or not. Then, because if I kick Hua Yifan out of the Hua family, Hua Yifan will no longer be a member of the Hua family. Old Master Hua stood up and said, Jinyao. Jinyao, Hua Jinyao's expression didn't change, but his gaze was unusually sharp. Shouldn't a traitor be expelled from the family? Jinyao, he's your cousin. Yes. He's my cousin, so I just expelled him from the family. Jinyao. Old Master Hua was old. Even though he knew that Hua Yifan had done wrong to the company and the Hua family, he was still his grandson. But that was his grandson after all. He hoped to see a happy family. Grandpa. Actually, I have harsher methods to deal with Hua Yifan, but I didn't. Because I don't think you want me to do that. He stood up, put the documents on the table back into the file bag. But Hua Yifan, I want to teach him a lesson. Old Master Hua's face was red. He panted, and his emotions were very complicated. Jinyao, he's your younger brother. Your brothers. When he schemed against me, he didn't treat me as a brother. Old Master Hua didn't say anything. He cleared his throat and said in a trembling voice, I know this is his fault, but he doesn't deserve to die. I didn't want him to die. I just wanted him to leave Tianyu Group and the Hua family. Hua Jinyao put away all the documents and gently knocked on the table. Grandpa, everything else can be discussed, but this is the only thing that can't be discussed. Old Master Hua didn't say anything. He looked at Hua Jinyao. He had grown up and was no longer the little boy who was willing to listen to him. Chapter 592. Ruthless. Old Master Hua's words made Hua Jinyao laugh. He knocked on the table playfully and leaned forward to look at Old Master Hua. If I really wanted to be ruthless, this information would have appeared in the hands of the board of directors. Not on your table. Which big family didn't have one or two prodigal sons? Which family didn't have one or two secrets? But no matter which family it was, they would not allow such a traitor to exist. Especially Hua Yifan. He was already the vice president of Tianyu Group. He had both status and power. Moreover, he also had shares in Tianyu Group, yet he still did such a thing. If he had been more ruthless and the truth had blown up, what would have happened to Hua Yifan? How could Old Master Hua not know? He just couldn't bear it. But, how will Yifan survive after leaving the Hua family? That's his business. Hua Jinyao's voice was slightly cold. Grandpa, you don't have to worry so much about him. After all, he has Su Peijian, who is smart and powerful, behind him. Don't you agree? Old Master Hua suddenly nodded. I see. You didn't want Su Peijian to marry into the Hua family, so you used this method? If Hua Yifan left the Hua family, he would no longer be part of the Hua family. What did it matter if Su Peijian married Hua Yifan or not? In order to protect Qingsang, you really are willing to do anything. Old Master Hua's tone wasn't very good. He didn't want to vent his anger on anyone, but he felt that Hua Jinyao was too ruthless. Of course. Thinking of Su Qingsang, Hua Jinyao smiled faintly. Everyone had a bottom line. His bottom line was Su Qingsang. He would never turn a blind eye to what Su Peijian had done to Su Qingsang. What he needed to do was to shatter Su Peijian's beautiful dream. Didn't she want to marry Hua Yifan? Then go and get married. She married Hua Yifan, who had left the Hua family. What he was more curious about was whether Hua Yifan, who had left Tianyu Group, would still let Su Peijian marry him willingly. Hua Jinyao was in a good mood after leaving Old Master Hua's study. On his way downstairs, he ran into Lu Tongjia. Seeing that it was her, the good mood on Hua Jinyao's face immediately disappeared. Mom. Hua Jinyao greeted Lu Tongjia blandly, then walked past her to go downstairs. Stop right there. Lu Tongjia looked at Hu Jinmiao. She felt upset again. On the day of the anniversary, Hu Mingguang asked Hu Jinmiao to stay at home, but he didn't. Later, she found out that Li Qianxue had come to Rong City to stay with Hu Jinmiao and Su Qingsang. Hu Jinmiao and Su Qingsang wanted to go back to accompany Li Qianxue. Lu Tongjia was furious when she found out about this. Look, look. She raised a good son. People say that girls look good. It was not much different for her to have a son here. Not only did she value her wife more than her mother, but she also valued her mother-in-law more than her mother. Is your mother-in-law still in Rome City? Nope. She took yesterday's flight back. Back? Lu Tongjia nodded. Your mother-in-law sure is arrogant. She came to Rome City but didn't visit us. She didn't even greet us when she went back. What? Does she look down on the Hu family? Hu Jinmiao finally turned his eyes to Lu Tongjia, his expression cold. Mom, you also care about whether they come to visit or not? Do you think they like our family? What do you mean? His attitude made Lu Tongjia angry. Why can't I care? If you say you can, then you can. Hu Jinmiao didn't refute. However, you framed Qingsang like that in order to ruin her reputation. It would be strange if she was willing to visit us. You. Lu Tongjia didn't expect him to still hold a grudge against her last time. What's with your attitude? How did I frame her? If she didn't have an affair with someone, I wouldn't have had the chance to frame her. Hu Jinmiao frowned slightly. Looking at Lu Tongjia's agitated face, he didn't have any hope and didn't want to argue with her. I know whether she had an affair or not. You don't have to be agitated. You don't have to think of a way to frame Qingsang. Because no matter what you do, I will believe her. Lu Tongjia watched as Hu Jinmiao ran away after saying that. She felt a breath stuck in her chest, making her uncomfortable. Apart from the uncomfortable feeling, she also felt a hidden sadness. Su Qingsang looked at Hu Jinmiao and found that he seemed to be in a good mood today. Did something good happen? Something good. Hu Jinmiao pulled her waist into his arms and let her nestle against his chest. What good thing? I helped you take a little revenge on Su Peijian. Su Qingsang heard Hu Jinmiao's words and widened her eyes. This was a little revenge? This was completely cutting off all of Su Peijian's escape routes, okay? With Su Peijian's personality, she was afraid that she would go crazy. However, thinking about Su Peijian's disappointed look, she actually felt a little happy. Wasn't she being a little bad now? Not bad at all. Hu Jinmiao didn't want her to be soft on Su Peijian. She just can't marry into the Hu family. If she wants, she can still be with Hu Yifan. It won't affect her much. I don't want you to pity her. Su Qingsang shook her head. She didn't pity Su Peijian. There must be something hateful about a pitiful person. Su Peijian had already bullied her. How could she just swallow it? But this move of yours is really cruel. She didn't know what Su Peijian would do next. Be careful these days. Hu Jinmiao suddenly became serious. Don't go home too late. Even if you are on duty in the hospital, try not to be alone. I don't want Su Peijian to have a chance to do anything to you. I don't think so. Su Peijian wouldn't break the law just to deal with him, would she? It's hard to say. If Su Peijian was really willing to settle down, he was willing to let it go. I'll talk to Yang Wenchang tomorrow and ask him to arrange 2 bodyguards for you. Stop it. Su Qingsang glared at him. She was a doctor. Did she have to bring 2 bodyguards when she went out? It would be strange if she didn't scare away those patients. Anyway, I go home and the hospital every day. I don't go anywhere else. Don't worry, it'll be fine. Moreover, Su Peijian was such a smart person. Why would she do something illegal? She shouldn't be that stupid. Anyway, you can't go wrong being careful. He didn't trust Hui Yifan and Su Peijian's characters. Of course, he would definitely ask Yang Wenchang to continue to keep an eye on Su Peijian. No matter what Su Peijian wanted to do, he wouldn't let her get what she wanted. Su Qingsang didn't object. She was sure that Su Peijian wouldn't really do anything extreme. After all, she was a smart person. She wouldn't be stupid enough to put herself in trouble. Oh right. Su Qingsang suddenly sat up straight as if she had thought of something. You said you shouldn't be alone. I forgot to tell you something. What? Su Qingsang tilted her head to look at him. Her pink cheeks were blushing. Her expression seemed to be a bit conflicted. I'm going on a business trip. I'll be gone for about half a month. The first hospital of Rome City had started a cooperation project with several hospitals in S province. They were going to S province for a free medical exchange. Su Qingsang's performance in the past few months in the hospital was remarkable. Sun Huiya strongly recommended her to go to S province. When Su Qingsang found out, the list had already been made. You know, Director Sun has always thought highly of me. This time, it's the same. She's already named me. There's no way I won't go. S province? Hua Jinyao's first reaction was to think of one thing. S province? Wasn't that, yes. Which city? C city. C city? It wasn't the same place. But there were accidents in everything. Su Qingsang blinked. You're not happy? A little. Hua Jinyao wrapped his arms around her waist and pressed his chin against her neck. I don't want you to go. Su Qingsang hugged him, tilted her head, and kissed him on the cheek. I don't want to go either. But I have no choice. Hua Jinyao didn't say anything and tightened his arms. Su Qingsang couldn't help but kiss him on the cheek again. All right, it'll be quick. I'll be back in half a month. Honey, half a month is a long time. Then, why don't you go with me? Su Qingsang joked. I'll apply to the hospital. I can't bring a family member, but I still need a driver. Why don't you come to our hospital and be a driver? You're getting bold. Hua Jinyao reached out and pinched her cheek. You dare to ask me to be your chauffeur? Can't I? Yes. Hua Jinyao rubbed her cheek. Seeing that her face had turned red because of his action, he couldn't help but lean over and kiss her. All right. Go if you want to. I support you. Hui Yifan's departure from Tianyu was imperative. There would be news about it by tomorrow at the latest. The departure of a vice president was not a small matter, especially for a large corporation like Tianyu. Next, whether it was Su Peijian or Hui Yifan, there would be some moves. In fact, he also believed that Su Peijian wouldn't dare to do anything to Su Qingsang openly, but he was afraid that she would do something secretly. Under such circumstances, it would be a good thing for Su Qingsang to leave Rong City. But after you go, you must be careful. I know. Su Qingsang knew that he would agree, but she was still quite happy. That was the best thing about Hua Jinyao. He looked a little strong and chauvinistic. But at critical times, he would always stand behind her and support her decisions. She couldn't help but raise her head and gently kiss his chin. Hua Jinyao, thank you. I don't really like this thank you gift. Hua Jinyao picked her up, left the sofa, and walked to the room. I'll be more satisfied if you change your thank you gift. Su Qingsang's face was a little hot, but she took the initiative to put her arms around his neck and let him carry her back to the room. What did you say? Hui Yifan looked at the person in front of him with a shocked expression. Chapter 593. The atmosphere in the office was depressing. Hui Yifan's voice had changed. Say that again. Hua Jinyao sat behind his desk and calmly watched Hui Yifan's face change. Even if I say it 100 times, it will still be the same. Hui Yifan, from today onwards, you're no longer the vice president of Tianyu Group. I was fired. Ridiculous. How could Hui Yifan accept such a thing? Who agreed? Who gave you the right? Let me tell you, do you think that just because you say you're fired, I'm going to leave? Yes. All I have to do is fire you and you want to leave. Hui Jinmiao, don't go too far. Hui Yifan's face darkened. He glared at Hui Jinmiao with hatred, as if he wanted to burn a hole in his body. You are a descendant of the Hui family, and so am I. You have contributed to the group, and I have also contributed to the group. What right do you have to drive me away? Because of this. As Hui Jinmiao spoke, he placed the document that he had shown old Master Hua in front of Hui Yifan. Hui Yifan picked it up and casually glanced at it. His expression suddenly became even more unsightly. He slammed the document in his hand on the table and pointed at Hui Jinmiao, his face full of resentment. You. Hui Jinmiao, you set me up? Yes, I set you up. Hui Jinmiao, you set me up? Hui Yifan was so angry that he repeated the same sentence twice. Hui Jinmiao rubbed the tip of his nose and nodded. Yes, I set you up. Can't I? I'm your younger brother. You're welcome. Cousin. You, Hui Yifan nodded angrily. Finally, he pointed at Hui Jinmiao's face and said, Fine. Even if I run a company outside, even if I poach someone from the company, I will still be able to pay for it. But does Grandpa know that you're plotting against me? Sorry, Grandpa knows. Looking at his flustered and exasperated look, Hui Jinmiao only found it funny. Do you think Grandpa will tolerate it? Let me tell you, it was my grandfather's idea to kick you out of Tianyu Group. Impossible. Hui Yifan didn't believe it at all. Grandpa is old. He likes to see a harmonious family. He won't agree. Hui Yifan. Hui Yifan stood up abruptly and sneered. You also know that Grandpa is old? Since you know Grandpa is old, why do you still do such a thing? Do you know that when Grandpa saw these things, he was so angry that he almost had a heart attack? And now you're telling me that Grandpa is old? Don't you find it ridiculous? Then why don't you show this to Grandpa? Hui Yifan gritted his teeth. He never thought that Hui Jinmiao would have such a trick up his sleeve. He just wanted to suppress Hui Jinmiao, but he didn't expect such a result. Why don't I show it to Grandpa? Hui Jinmiao sat back down and admired the depressed look on Hui Yifan's face. I don't want to waste my breath on you. Anyway, from today onwards, you're no longer the vice president of Tianyu Group. I will find someone else to fill your position. Hui Yifan knew that Hui Jinmiao was telling the truth. There was no turning back. He stood there, his heart filled with unwillingness and anger. This was not the result he wanted, nor was this the result he had predicted. Hui Jinmiao, do you have to do this? Yes. Hui Jinmiao wasn't polite at all. That's not all. I can also tell you that Grandpa said. From today onwards, you are no longer a member of the Hua family. What did you say? Hui Yifan's expression had completely changed this time, as if he had squeezed the words out from between his teeth. I said, from today onwards, you are no longer a member of the Hua family. This can't be Grandpa's idea, right? Grandfather Hua might kick him out of the company when he was angry, but he would never remove him from the Hua family. Hui Jinmiao was the only one who could come up with such an evil plan. Yes, that's what I mean. Hui Jinmiao, don't forget. Your surname is Hua, so is mine. If your surname wasn't Hua, I would have known. How can you stand here and talk to me with such an attitude? He knew that Hui Yifan wouldn't give up. Hui Jinmiao didn't mind teaching him another lesson. No matter how Hui Yifan argued with Hui Jinmiao, he knew that he had lost this time. Before leaving Tianyu, Hui Yifan still wanted to try one more time. Hui Jinmiao. If possible, can you let Yang take over my position? He doesn't know about me. Hui Jinmiao suddenly smiled. That smile was sarcastic. Hui Yifan, you still want to negotiate with me at this time? Hui Yifan's face was pale. Hui Jinmiao didn't mind stabbing him again. Even you can't beat me. Do you think Hui Yang can beat me? Hearing that, Hui Yifan's face became more and more pale. When Su Peijian entered the room, she smelled alcohol. She furrowed her brows. What's wrong? The contract has been signed. You don't seem happy. In order to spite Su Qingsang, she brought forward the plan. The two of them started the company they privately opened and signed the contract the day before yesterday. Today, Hui Jinmiao was drinking. Happy? Hui Yifan's eyes were bloodshot. He stared at Su Peijian with his eyes wide open. Do you really not know, or are you pretending not to know? What? Ha 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 ha. Hui Yifan put the glass in his hand heavily on the table. I was played by Hui Jinmiao. For the past few years, I've been thinking about why I lost to him. I've always wanted to prove myself. I want to prove that I'm better than him. But what happened in reality? Hui Yifan swept an empty wine bottle on the table to the ground. I was played by Hui Jinmiao. Do you know? I'm no longer the vice president of Tianyu Group. I was even kicked out of the Hui family. Kicked out of the Hui family. How dare they do this to me? Su Peijian watched him lose control, and her brows furrowed so tightly that a mosquito could be squeezed to death. What's going on? Don't be crazy. Tell me clearly. Didn't I make it clear enough? Okay. Then I'll say it again. I thought what I did was flawless, but Hui Jinmiao knew everything from the beginning to the end. He knew it all along. He knew what I was doing outside. He knew that I was running a company outside. Do you even know the company that signed a contract with me? Those were all traps set by Hui Jinmiao. Let me tell you, me, and you. We were all played by Hui Jinmiao. Impossible. Su Peijian's expression didn't look good. How could this be? Yes. I also want to know how this could be. Hui Yifan stood up as he spoke. He stood in front of Su Peijian. Tell me, why did this happen? Su Peijian couldn't answer this question. She knew that Hui Jinmiao wasn't an ordinary person when she was in Lin City. But she didn't expect him to be so powerful. Calm down first. Things haven't gotten to the worst yet. Maybe there will be a turn for the better. A turn for the better? What turn for the better? Hui Yifan sneered. His face, which was red from drinking, was full of anger. Let me tell you, there won't be a turn for the better. Because my grandfather already knows. Do you hear me clearly? Grandfather already knows. Hui Jinmiao was too ruthless. He didn't even leave him a way out. Su Peijian didn't say anything. Hui Yifan took 2 steps back and sat on the sofa weakly. He poured another glass of wine and began to drink. However, after he drank 2 glasses, Su Peijian suddenly grabbed his hand. Hui Yifan, pull yourself together. Things haven't gotten to that point yet. Oh? Haven't gotten to that point yet? Tell me, I was already kicked out of the Hui family. How far can it go? How far do you think it can go? He pushed Su Peijian's hand away. Su Peijian took a step back. She stood back again, but her expression was even more unsightly than before. Hui Yifan, no wonder you can't beat Hui Jinmiao in this state. When he was framed by you, he didn't drink to drown his sorrows. Su Peijian. Hui Yifan stood up and glared fiercely at the person in front of him. What did you say? What did I say? I said no wonder you can't beat Hui Jinmiao. With your current appearance, it's impossible for you to beat him. Hui Yifan's hand was raised and was about to fall. Su Peijian didn't retreat. Come. Hit. Hit here. Hit here. She raised her face and faced Hui Yifan. Hui Yifan looked at her and suddenly put down his hand. Okay. I can't beat Hui Jinmiao. I can't beat him. Since you admire him so much, you can go with him. Su Peijian sneered. You don't have to chase me away. I'll leave now. Hui Yifan, let me tell you, you can continue to drink here and continue to live a drunken life. I, Su Peijian, am blind to marry a coward like you. After saying this, she left without looking back. When Su Qingsang got off the plane, she felt the heat wave hitting her face. Rome City was located in the north. After the Dragon Boat Festival, the temperature wasn't high. City C, located in Province S, was in the middle of China. After the Dragon Boat Festival, the weather here was considered hot. It's so hot. Sun Huiya was born and raised in Rome City. She couldn't stand it as soon as she got off the plane. Su Qingsang smiled and looked at the long-sleeved knitted shirt on Sun Huiya's body. Director Sun, I reminded you. Yes, you did remind me, but I'm old. I'm always a little afraid of the cold. I didn't expect the weather here to be like this. It's okay. When we get to the dormitory later, change your clothes first. Then have a good rest. This time, they were working with Renha Hospital in City C. It was also the largest hospital in the area. They had arranged rooms for them in the hospital dormitory, and there was a welcome banquet tonight. Okay. Sun Huiya nodded and followed Su Qingsang into the car that came to pick them up. Su Qingsang didn't have much luggage. It was just a small suitcase. However, Sun Huiya had a big suitcase. Su Qingsang took the initiative to help her with the suitcase. You have so few things. Sun Huiya glanced at Su Qingsang. Did you bring enough clothes? Su Qingsang smiled and was a little embarrassed. My husband said that carrying too much luggage was tiring. He told me to buy whatever I need here. Tisk, Dr. Su, are you showing off your love in front of us? Ling Fei, who came with them, heard it and joked with Su Qingsang. That's right. He's showing off his love in front of us. Zheng Qinyu, who came with them, also clicked his tongue. He thought about how everyone saw Hua Jinyao personally send Su Qingsang to the airport this morning and how the two of them were inseparable at the airport. It's good to just get married. This relationship is so good. Sun Huiya also teased. Su Qingsang felt more and more uncomfortable. It's not really just married. Su Qingsang was a little embarrassed. We've been married for almost a year. Su Qingsang was stunned when she said this. Yes. Thinking about it seriously, it was almost a year since she and Hua Jinyao got married. It would be the 1-year anniversary in about 10 days, right? If that was the case, wouldn't their wedding anniversary not be together? After all, she still had to stay here for half a month. Her heart was a little gloomy. This was their first wedding anniversary, but the two of them couldn't be together. Thinking about it seriously, they got married so casually. Maybe Hua Jinyao didn't even remember this day? Su Qingsang suddenly felt a little stifled. However, her heart couldn't stay stifled for long. In the following time, she, Sun Huiya, and all the doctors who came to Rome City with them began to get busy. Renha Hospital in C City was famous and had many patients. It didn't lose to the first hospital of Rome City at all. Especially since they also had cooperation with many units. On the third day of their arrival, they encountered a unit that arranged for people to come for a physical examination. There were many women in this unit. With more women, there were more gynecology-related items to be examined. Su Qingsang and Sun Huiya had originally arranged for outpatients today, but now, they all went to help. After this wave of people finished the examination. Almost 2 days had passed. 2 days later, there was another random inspection. Even if they were here for an exchange, they all became busy. In the blink of an eye, Su Qingsang had been here for a week. Tonight, she had to do a summary of this week's work. Sun Huiya wasn't young anymore. Such a busy day was a little too much for her. Su Qingsang took the initiative to ask her to rest, and Sun Huiya didn't refuse. She said that she would host the exchange and cooperation meeting at night. Su Qingsang nodded and picked up her notebook. She originally wanted to go back to the temporary office they arranged to prepare. Unexpectedly, as soon as she walked out of the corridor, she met a group of people in front of her in a hurry. The man in the lead stunned her for a moment. He held his notebook and stood there without moving. Uncle? Zhang Yichen was holding a pregnant woman in his arms. When he saw Su Qingsang, he was stunned. Why are you here? Su Qingsang looked at the pregnant woman in his arms. There was already blood flowing from her lower body. She waved her hand and said, "Let's not talk about that first. What's the situation?" Not only Zhang Yichen, but there were also several soldiers standing behind him. Everyone looked nervous. She fell just now. She seems to be in danger now. Hurry up and save her. Zhang Yichen didn't have time to explain more, so he quickly explained the situation. Su Qingsang glanced at Zhang Yichen. The first thought in her mind was that Hua Jinyao's uncle was too lucky. Why did he always encounter people who tried to blackmail him? She didn't have time to think about other things at the moment. She hurriedly waved her hand. Come on, this way. Arrange for someone to do the procedure. I'll examine her first. Okay. Zhang Yichen breathed a sigh of relief and carried the pregnant woman into the consulting room Su Qingsang arranged. Su Qingsang pulled the curtain to examine the pregnant woman. Before the curtain was closed, Zhang Yichen called her. Qingsang? You have to save her and the baby in her belly. Su Qingsang glanced at him and felt the seriousness in his eyes. She nodded. She silently closed the curtain. After the examination, she quickly walked out of the room. She's in bad condition. She needs a cesarean section. I'll arrange for the operation now. Don't worry. Her life should not be in danger for now. Can you do the operation yourself? Su Qingsang was stunned. They were here to exchange and learn. It was not impossible for her to do the operation. But it needed to be arranged by the higher-ups. I trust you. Zhang Yichen stared at her face. The trust in his eyes made Su Qingsang unable to think about anything else. She nodded. Okay, I'll do the operation. Su Qingsang had had cesarean sections many times. It was not a big operation for her. However, when the pregnant woman entered the operating room, she found that her condition was a bit complicated. Her blood was Rh negative. The hospital's blood bank only had 2 units of Rh negative blood. The pregnant woman had lost too much blood. At least 4 units of blood had to be transfused. She reported the situation. The only thing she could do was to try her best to save the pregnant woman's life. She didn't know how the outside coordinated. Anyway, in the time she estimated, someone sent Rh negative blood. A few hours later, Su Qingsang came out of the operating room. She was in a strange operating room with a strange assistant and a strange person. Fortunately, they cooperated well. When she came out, she found Zhang Yichen and the other soldiers were still waiting outside. Su Qingsang took off her mask. Zhang Yichen was already standing in front of her. How is it? How is she? Both mother and daughter are safe. Su Qingsang saw the anxious look on Zhang Yichen's face. But the baby is less than 8 months old. It is very fragile now. She needs to stay in the incubator for a few days for observation. Okay. What about the adult? The anesthesia is still there. She will probably wake up later. Su Qingsang glanced at Zhang Yichen. He was still in his military uniform. His chest was covered in blood, but he didn't seem to care at all. Thinking of what happened between him and her in the Hua family's old house, she felt a little awkward. Although she had been drugged and drunk before she did that, she was still Zhang Yichen's elder sister. Su Qingsang cleared her throat to divert his attention. Oh, right. Why were you so careless? And you ran into her again? Su Qingsang wasn't joking. You are so lucky. You run into her every time. It's not luck. Zhang Yichen's expression was serious. He looked at Su Qingsang with a touch of pain in his eyes. She is the family of a martyr. Last week, her husband died. Su Qingsang was stunned. She saw the pain in Zhang Yichen's eyes. He was your comrade? Zhang Yichen nodded almost imperceptibly. He was his comrade and his subordinate. Last week, he died in the line of duty. Before he died, he happily told them that he was going to be a father soon. However, before he could become a father, something happened to him. His wife received the news yesterday and rushed over today. She came to take him home, but she was too emotional when she saw the cold tombstone. She accidentally fell on her way down the hill. They went back to the city. The nearest hospital was Renha Hospital, so they sent the pregnant woman here. She will be fine, right? His comrade was the only child in his family. The newborn child was the only child left behind by the other party. Su Qingsang's eyes were a little wet. She nodded and said, "Don't worry. The operation was successful. They will be fine." Zhang Yichen breathed a sigh of relief. He looked at Su Qingsang's surgical gown and asked, "Why are you here?" "Our hospital organized us to come here for a learning exchange." Su Qingsang seemed to have just realized that she was wearing a surgical gown. She awkwardly cleared her throat. "It's done. The operation here is done. I still have something to do. If you want, you can go to the nursery over there to see the baby." "Thank you, Qingsang." Zhang Yichen thanked her very seriously. Su Qingsang was a little embarrassed. "You're welcome. It's my job." Moreover, he was a family member of a martyr. Su Qingsang had high respect for people like him. "Well, if there's nothing else, I'll leave now. Uncle, please help yourself." She turned to leave, not noticing that Zhang Yichen's eyes lingered on her back for a few seconds. The way she called him uncle made his heart ache. He looked away and glanced at the soldiers behind him. "Let's go and see the baby." Su Qingsang had performed the operation for a few hours the night before. The next morning, the hospital considerately asked her to rest and didn't arrange any outpatient services. Su Qingsang had been busy for the past few days. She planned to go shopping this morning and buy 2 sets of clothes. The weather in Sea City had been getting hotter and hotter. She had to go through the hospital gate when she left the hospital dormitory. She was about to open the map to see if there was a department store nearby. A Hummer stopped in front of her. The body of the Hummer was painted camouflage. Su Qingsang instinctively took a step back and saw the person sitting in the car. "Uncle? You're here to see Chen Yi again?" Chen Yi was the pregnant woman from yesterday. She had woken up early this morning. Her vital signs were normal. Zhang Yichen had indeed just seen Chen Yi. He glanced at the bag in Su Qingsang's hand. "You're going out? Where are you going?" "I'll give you a ride." "No need. I'll call a taxi." Su Qingsang waved her hand. She didn't dare to trouble this uncle. "Are you familiar with Sea City?" "No. I am." "Get in the car." That didn't seem right. "Uncle, it's really no trouble. You can call me uncle too. Sea City is my territory. Get in the car and I'll give you a ride. Just treat it as a good host." Su Qingsang couldn't refuse him anymore. She bowed and got in Zhang Yichen's car. "Well, if that's the case, thank you, uncle." You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.